Chapter 5023. Fengjiu listened to Hao talking, and not long after, Yu interjected a few words, and Muqin also opened his mouth to speak. Listening to the three children talking about the interesting things inside and the return journey, she nodded her head and praised. You all did very well. Hearing their mother's words of praise, the three children looked at each other and laughed at the same time. The maid came over with breakfast, but because she saw the boundary of the courtyard, she didn't enter, but stood at the entrance of the courtyard and waited. After seeing this, Fengjiu said a few words to the three children, then removed the boundary and let the maid bring in the food. You all came back so early, you must be hungry. Quickly eat. After eating, if you are tired, go back to your room and sleep. Fengjiu said to the three children. Okay. The three children answered and accompanied her to eat breakfast. After eating breakfast, Fengjiu accompanied the three children to walk in the courtyard to digest the food, then let them go back to their room to sleep for a while, and wait until noon. She will take them out to play. When the three children heard that she will take them out to play, they immediately agreed and returned to their room to sleep. Not long after the three children returned to their room, Songmi came over. When she entered the courtyard and saw that she was alone, she stepped forward and called, Master, where are the three of them? I'll let them sleep for a while to make up for their sleep, and, at noon, I will take them out to play. Fengjiu said with a smile, sitting by the table and drinking tea. Then I will take you out at noon. I am familiar with the city. Saying this, said, Master, I went to my mother's place, and I also know about the matter in my family. This time, I really have to thank you. My father and mother are behind me. They said that they will personally come to thank you. That's right, my father has been asking about your identity, but I didn't say. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, I originally planned to return to the island when you returned, but now that your family is in trouble, and most likely because of me, I can't leave until the matter with the Chang clan is resolved. So, we will continue to stay here for the time being. It won't be too late to leave after the matter with the Chang clan is resolved. Songmi was taken aback. Would the Chung family dare to seek revenge? Didn't they say that the cultivation of those four old men with strong cultivations was crippled by Master? If the Chung clan's clan head knows about this, he probably won't come to seek revenge, right? After all, to be able to cripple the cultivation of those four people, his strength was naturally not weak. The Chung clan did not want to take the risk of offending him again. Fengjiu chuckled and toyed with the teacup in his hand. You don't understand. There are some people who, even if you have the intention to let them go, they still insist on walking down the path of death. What will the Chung family do? I don't know, but I believe that we will know soon enough. Hearing this, Songmi didn't say anything else because she saw that her father and mother had arrived. She immediately said, Master, my father, mother, and my three older brothers are here. As she spoke, she walked towards them. Ever since Song Lingbo entered the courtyard, he had been sizing up the lady in green who was sitting there drinking tea. Her green robes were simple yet elegant, and her appearance was ordinary. She was the kind of person who would be forgotten with a single glance. However, as she sat there, the calmness she exuded was inexplicable, and no one dared to underestimate her. Based on his experience of reading countless people, he could tell at a glance that this person was a powerhouse who had hidden his strength. Chapter 5024. You don't have to be so polite, Fengjiu said and gestured, Please sit. Song Lingbo and his wife sat down at the stone table. Mrs. Song said, Mrs. Xianyuan, these three are Mier's three brothers. Then, she looked at the three. The three of them understood and stepped forward to bow. Song Yihong, Song Yiming, Song Yifun, nice to meet you, Mrs. Xianyuan. The three said at the same time and bowed respectfully. I've always heard me mention the three of you. Madam Song, you're truly blessed to be able to meet you today. Fengjiu smiled as she looked at Madam Song. Hearing this, Madam Song couldn't help but smile. She looked at the children with gratification and joy in her eyes, but she still smiled modestly and said, You're too kind. Don't judge them by their looks. They're usually troublesome. Mrs. Xianyuan, I've heard from my wife about what happened in the house. This time, it's all thanks to you. I, Song Lingbo, am very grateful. Song Lingbo stood up and said. This time he bowed deeply to her. Seeing this, Feng Jiu said, "This is Mir's home. I happen to be here as well. It's not a big deal. Mrs. Xianyuan, you saved my wife and solved the crisis of the Song family. To you it's not a big deal, but to the Song family, it's a big deal." Song Lingbo looked at her and said, "With Madame Xuanyuan's ability, I don't think I could do anything for Madame. I can only personally cook for Madame Xianyuan, while Madame Xianyuan is staying in my residence to thank Madame Xianyuan." Hearing this, Feng Jiu laughed and said, "If it's anything else, I really don't need it. However, I'm a person who loves delicious food. I am very honored to have Chef Godsong personally cook for me." "Is that so? Didn't I say that if Father wants to repay me, it would be best for you to personally cook?" Mir, who was at the side, winked at her father and said with a smile, Yes, you're the smartest." Mrs. Song chuckled as she glared at her daughter. "Madame Xianyuan, I have something to ask you today." Song Lingbo's gaze fell on her as he spoke. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled and said, "You want to know who I am?" Song Lingbo nodded and said seriously, "That's right. I'm very curious about Madame Xuanyuan's identity. Other than that, I'm also worried that the Chung clan won't let this matter rest. Therefore, I hope that Madame Xianyuan can tell me her identity so that I can be mentally prepared." He wanted to know her identity for two reasons. Firstly, he was curious. Secondly, he was worried that the Chung clan would come again. When that time came, the Song clan would be strong. He knew very well what kind of fighting power the Song clan had. Even if they were a big clan, they would definitely not be able to fight against a clan like the Chung clan. Therefore, he had to know her identity before he could make arrangements. Feng Jiu smiled and looked at Song Lingbo and Mrs. Song. He said slowly, "My name is Feng Jiu." "Feng Jiu?" Mrs. Song was stunned. Hearing this name, she was confused. Song Lingbo was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he stood up. He could not hide the shock on his face. You are." Waves of shock surged in his heart. He could not believe it. Feng Jiu. Chapter 5025. He couldn't help but look at Mir and ask, "Mir, is she really?" Yes, it's the one that Father guessed." Song Mir nodded with a smile. Hearing this, Song Lingbo was about to kneel down and salute Feng Nine as he said, Song Lingbo was blind. "I didn't know." He wanted to kneel down, but found that he couldn't. It was as if there was an invisible force holding him and preventing him from kneeling. He looked up and saw Feng Jiu smiling. "Master Song, you don't have to do this. I didn't want to disturb anyone." Yes. He quickly nodded and stood up, not daring to sit at the same table with her. Empress Phoenix Master. She was the most powerful being in the world. People like them had only heard about her. Never did they expect to see her in person and in their home. Suddenly, he felt a bit dizzy, as if it was all unreal. When the three sons of the Song family heard that name, they vaguely felt that they had heard it somewhere before, but they couldn't remember where. Seeing their father's shocked and excited expression, they couldn't help but look at each other with a surprised expression. Song Yifun waved at Mir, and the three of them went to a corner and whispered, "Mir, who is Lady Xianyuan? Why does Father look so shocked when he hears the name Feng Jiu? I think I've heard the name before, but I can't remember. Who is she?" Song Yifun asked in a low voice. The other two also looked at Mir, waiting for her answer. "You don't know?" Song Mir blinked her eyes. There was a hint of surprise in her voice. She looked them up and down and said, "Who told you to bury yourselves in researching new dishes at home? You don't know what's going on outside. Mir, tell us. What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you." Hearing this, Song Mir grinned. Seeing how anxious they were, she couldn't help but find it funny. She said, I won't say it. Later, you guys can ask Father yourselves. However, what you heard here, just let us know. Don't let anyone else know, especially the name Feng Nine. Don't mention it in front of anyone else." "Why is that?" The three of them couldn't help but look at Lady Xianyuan, who was talking to their parents. "Just listen to me, and you won't go wrong," she said with a smile, and didn't say anything more to them. She skipped over to her parents' side. Song Lingbo and the others chatted with Feng Jiu for a while, and then left. After saw them leave. She came to Feng Jiu's side and said with a smile, Mistress, you didn't want anyone to know your identity when you disguised yourself this time. Why did you tell my father? The Song family is so much weaker than the Chung family. If I didn't tell your father who I am, do you think he would feel at ease? Feng Jiu raised an eyebrow and glanced at her. You, on the other hand, seem happy to see your father scared by my identity. Chapter 5026. Okay, Feng Jiu replied with a smile. On the other side, when Song Lingbo returned to the main courtyard and sat down on a chair in his room, he could not help but exhale softly. He leaned against the chair and did not speak for a long time. However, his eyes shone with an excited light, and his expression was somewhat indescribable. Seeing him like this, Mrs. Song couldn't help but worry. Darling, are you okay? Ever since he heard that Mrs. Xuanyuan's name was Feng Jiu, he had been acting weird. Now that he was back in his room, he was sitting there in a daze. Song Yihong and the other two looked at each other and asked, Dad, who is this Feng Jiu? Why did you? Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Song Lingbo, who was sitting down, suddenly stand up. Song Lingbo gestured for him to keep quiet and strode outside. When he arrived at the door and saw that there were no servants in the courtyard, he closed the door and set up a soundproof enchantment. All of them were stunned when they saw this, and their expressions couldn't help but become serious. We have an important guest. This is Mrs. Xianyuan. She is incredible. When he mentioned this, he could not hide the excitement on his face. He said, Feng Jiu is the name of the Empress Phoenix Master. It can't be wrong. Madame Xianyuan is the Empress Phoenix Master. She's also the Phoenix Master who killed the Northern Flame Emperor not long after ascending. Hearing this, Song Yifan slapped his thigh and said excitedly, I was wondering why this name sounded so familiar. She is the Empress Phoenix Master. However, I've heard that the Phoenix Master likes to wear red clothes, and her beauty is unparalleled. The one in our house looks very ordinary. Could it be a mistake? Or is it just the same name? Yes, she's a legendary figure. How could she be a guest in our house? Dad, could it be that she has the same name? Song Yihong said. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that such an unreachable figure would come to their house. It can't be wrong. It must be her. Song Lingbo said with certainty. Think about it. If it wasn't for her, who else would have the ability to cripple the cultivation of the 4 elders of the Chung family? If it wasn't her, who would dare to look down on the Chung family like she did? Furthermore, Mir also said that it was her. There's no mistake. Mrs. Song heard this and asked, so, as long as she is in our house, even if the Chung family comes for revenge, we don't have to worry? Let's not talk about one Chung clan. Even if 10 Chung clans came, as long as she was in our residence, we would have no worries. Song Lingbo said. At this moment, it could be said that he was completely relieved. Originally, he wanted to send out invitations to those experts who were on good terms with him to come and help him. He didn't expect that there would be no need for that now. With Feng Jiu in their house, they wouldn't have to worry even if there were 10 Chung families. That's good, that's good. Only then did Madame Song's anxious heart relax. She said, Madame Xianyuan said that she would only leave after settling the Chung family's matter. She wouldn't let our family be implicated. Chapter 5027. All right, we understand. The few of them made a mental note. During this period of time, I will personally cook her meals in our residence. The 3 of you will be my assistants. Come, let's go to the kitchen to take a look. He gestured, and after instructing his wife, he walked out with his 3 sons. At noon, Feng Jiu brought the 3 children, and me led the way to the city. Before leaving, Mi-er went to inform her parents, so she knew that her father would be cooking tonight. Tonight's dinner, they still had to return to the residence to eat. After Mi-er and Feng Jiu left, the residents began to get busy, preparing for dinner. At this time, most of the people in the Song residence had already forgotten about Kameng, who was still recuperating in the guest courtyard. When Kameng found out that the head of the Song family and the young masters had returned, the people in the residence were also busy. She sat in the courtyard in a daze, realizing that her situation in the Song family was really awkward. A guest could not be considered a guest, nor was she an old friend of the Song family, nor did she have any ties. Other than that one day, Madame Song never came again, as if she had forgotten about her. The Song family was kind enough to let her stay and recuperate. She was grateful, and her injuries gradually healed. However, as her injuries gradually healed, her heart became more anxious, because she did not know where she was going to go. After sitting in the courtyard for a while and spacing out for a while, she stood up and walked out. With nowhere to go, there was no way out. Sitting here in a daze would not do her any good. Why not go out for a walk to relieve her boredom and see what the Song family was busy with? Kumeng, who was dressed in a plain white dress, had an extremely good appearance. Coupled with the slight worry between her brows, she exuded a delicate aura that made people want to protect her. As she walked in the residence, the guards in the residence could not help but glance at her. As long as it wasn't a forbidden area, no one would stop her. Thus, as she strolled, she unknowingly arrived at the main courtyard. She thought that since she was recuperating in the Song residence, she should properly thank Madame Song. Unexpectedly, before she could enter the main courtyard, she saw Madame Song walk out from the courtyard. "Madam," she curtsied and called out. "Miss Ke, what brings you here?" Madame Song asked as she looked at Kumeng, her eyes flashing. A woman must be pretty and filial. What he said was true. She was also a woman. She was wearing a plain white dress with a small white flower in her hair. She didn't wear any makeup, but she was so beautiful that it made people want to take pity on her. Hearing her words, Kumeng paused and said, "I was recuperating in the courtyard and hadn't walked around for a long time. Unknowingly, I walked over to Madame's place. Seeing that the servants were all busy, I wanted to ask Madame if there was anything I could help with." "I see." Madame Song smiled and said, "Miss Ku, you are a guest in our residence. Furthermore, you are injured and should be recuperating. Those chores are all done by the servants. Naturally, we can't trouble you." As she spoke, she paused for a moment before continuing, "My master and my 3 sons have returned. Miss Ku is an unmarried woman after all. During this period of recuperation, it will be inconvenient for you to move about in the residence. If there is nothing urgent, Miss Ku can order the servants to come here." Chapter 5028. A complicated look flashed across Madame Song's eyes as she watched Kumeng leave. Madame Song could not be blamed for treating her like a stranger. She was simply too beautiful. Now that she was homeless, who knew if Madame Song would harbor any evil thoughts? Sigh. Madame Song sighed softly and returned to the courtyard helplessly. Kumeng did not go anywhere else. Instead, she returned to her room in the courtyard and sat in front of the mirror. She looked at herself in the mirror, and her eyes flashed. She gently caressed her face with one hand. "In the past, I used to think that as a woman, it was a blessing to have such a beautiful face. However, it was also this face that brought about the destruction of my family. Now that I was luckily saved, it was as if I was reborn. Now that I look at this extremely beautiful face again, I feel that it is the root of disaster." She muttered to herself as she thought of Madame Xuanyuan's indifference and Madame Song's alienation. She knew that it was all because of this face. If I leave the Song family with such a beautiful face, who knows if I'll attract evil people like Chung Wanli one day. If that's the case, I might as well destroy it. She seemed to be talking to herself. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. The hand that was caressing her face landed on the dressing table. She picked up a hairpin and slowly moved it to her face. Her gaze fell on the mirror. She looked at her perfect and flawless face in the mirror. Her hands trembled slightly. She pursed her lips and slowly closed her eyes. The hairpin in her hand was pressed against her face. The cold touch of the hairpin made her involuntarily shiver. In the next moment, she exerted force in her hand. The hairpin pierced her skin and slowly slid downwards. Fresh blood dripped down from the hairpin. As the hairpin slashed across her face, it left a deep cut. Due to the strength of the blow, her skin and flesh were slightly exposed. However, she tightly bit her lips and did not even make a sound. She only swallowed her tears and the blood that seeped out of her lips. Feng Jiao and the others who were playing outside returned to the Song family mansion in the evening. Dinner was placed in the front courtyard of the Song family mansion. Madame Song thought that everyone had not sat down for a proper meal, so she wanted to have a meal with everyone tonight. Set the table properly. Move the flowers over there a little to make the place more spacious. Madame Song directed the servants to arrange the scene. Then, she thought of Kumeng, who was in the guest courtyard. No matter what, she was still a guest of the residence. It would be too much if she didn't invite her over. Thus, she ordered the servant girl beside her. Go and invite Miss Ku over for dinner tonight. Yes. The maidservant responded and went to the guest courtyard. Mother, Songmir, came over and looked at the busy people. She smiled and went forward to hold her hand. Mother, who else do you want to invite to eat? It's Miss Kumeng from the guest courtyard, Madame Song said. Oh, is it the girl you saved that night? Then I'll go invite him. In any case, I haven't seen her yet. As she spoke, she called out to the maidservant. You don't have to go, I'll go. As she spoke, she let go of the maidservant's hand and walked towards the guest courtyard. When Madame Song saw this, she helplessly shook her head and ordered the maidservant, go see if the dishes are ready and have someone bring them up. Then, she ordered another maidservant. Have you prepared the fruits I asked you to prepare after the meal? Chapter 5029. Replying to Miss Ku is in her room. Do you need this servant to invite her out? Asked the servant. No need, I'll go myself. Song Mir shook her head. Just as she was about to walk in, she stopped and asked, Let me ask you, is Miss Ku really very beautiful? Hearing this, the two servant girls didn't know what she meant. They looked at her and hesitated for a moment. If they said another girl was beautiful in front of Miss, would Miss be angry? Say it. Why are you looking at me? Song Mir said, Miss Ku is very beautiful. Everyone in the manor says so. The two servant girls said and quickly lowered their heads, afraid that their miss would be angry. Oh, she didn't think much of it. Ever since she saw her miss's face that could topple the world, when other women said they were beautiful, she didn't think they could be more beautiful than her Mississippi walking inside. After looking around, she came to the door in the middle and knocked. Miss Ku, I am Song Mir. My mother asked me to invite you to the front yard for a meal. She called out and stood in front of the door, waiting for her to open the door and see how beautiful she was. When Kumeng heard the sound, she was stunned. She took out a veil and tied it around her face, but found that the veil was very thin. Through it, she could see the bleeding wound on her face. So she tore a piece of cloth from the inside of her clothes and tied it around the veil. Miss Ku, hearing the movement in the room, but no sound, Song Mir called out again. She felt a little strange. Coming. At the same time, Kumeng's voice came from the room. The door opened. Dressed in a plain white dress, Kumeng stood by the door with a white veil around her face. Her face couldn't be seen. Only her eyes could be seen. Miss Song. She bowed slightly. Her voice was a little hoarse, because the wound on her face was red and swollen. When she opened her mouth, it pulled at the wound on her face. Under the white veil, her face grew even paler. Miss Ku, why are you wearing this? Song Mir pointed at the white cloth on her face and asked in surprise. She bent her knees slightly and bowed again, saying, Miss Song, I'm not feeling well, so I'm afraid I can't go. Please help Kumeng thank Madam for her good intentions. When Kumeng feels better, I'll personally go and thank her. Song Mir saw that although she was wearing a white cloth, her expression was indeed very weak, and her voice was slightly hoarse, so she said, All right then, Miss Ku, if you're not feeling well, you should have a good rest. Later, I'll have the estate's physician come over to take a look at you. No need to trouble yourself. I'll be fine after some rest. Thank you, Miss Song, she said. Seeing this, Song Mi did not say anything else. She told her to rest well and left. After watching her leave, Kumeng closed the door and went back to lie on the bed. The wound on her face was burning with pain, and it was so painful that it twitched and twitched. She closed her eyes and thought, I'll be fine after I get through these 2 days. On the other side, Song Mi told her mother what Kumeng said. When Madame Song heard this, she sighed softly and said, Fine, later tell your brother and the others to leave a portion and have the servants send it to her. Okay, Song Mi replied with a smile. Chapter 5030. When the meal was finally over and everyone had dispersed, the elders hurriedly stopped Song Lingbo. Lingbo, what's going on with you? Why did he dive into the kitchen to cook after coming back? I'm afraid the matter between the Song and Chung family isn't over yet. As the family head, why aren't you worried at all? One of the elders said worriedly. That's right. Now that the family is in big trouble, you're still in the mood to eat and drink? Another elder shook his head and said, because he was worried. Even though Song Lingbo was in charge of cooking tonight, he was not in the mood to eat. Hearing this, Song Lingbo said, elders, don't worry. The Chung family probably won't dare to come again. Even if they do, there's no need to worry. Don't think about this anymore and go back to rest. Trust me, the residents will be fine. As he spoke, he did not wait for them to say anything else and walked away. A few days later, in the morning, Kameng came to the main courtyard and said to the maidservant outside, please report to Madam that Kameng is here to bid farewell. The maidservant went in to report that Madam Song had arrived in the courtyard and had someone bring her in. When she came in, she saw that she was wearing a veil and had changed her white clothes into a slightly darker beige dress. She still looked like the same person, but there was something different about her. Miss Ku, have your injuries healed? Madam Song asked gently. I've made Madam worry. Kuming's injuries have all healed. I've disturbed you in the residence for a long time, so I'm here to bid farewell. Many thanks to Madam for giving me a place to recuperate during this period of time. Kuming is eternally grateful. Kuming bowed to Madam Song gratefully. Hearing this, Madam Song nodded and asked, now that you're homeless, what do you plan to do from now on? The world is vast. There will always be a place for Kuming to stay. Madam, you don't have to worry about Kuming. She said softly. Kuming is going to bid farewell to Madam Xinyuan. I wonder if Madam can lead the way? She was indebted to Madam Xinyuan. Now that she was leaving, she naturally had to bid farewell to her. All right, I'm going over as well. Come with me, Madam Song said, and brought her to the courtyard where Fengjiu and the children were staying. Early in the morning, the three children woke up and practiced their martial arts in the courtyard. Fengjiu sat in the courtyard and watched, giving them pointers from time to time. Mia accompanied her. When Mia saw her mother coming over, she stood up and ran toward her mother with a smile. She held her mother's hand and walked into the courtyard. Mother, why have you come? As he spoke, he looked at Kameng and called out with a smile. Miss Ku is also here. Miss Song. Kameng nodded at her. Mia asked. Initially, she wanted to see what she looked like. Who would have thought that the 2 times she saw her, she would be wearing a veil? Kameng smiled. The veil covered her smile, but her eyes were slightly curved. It was obvious that she was smiling. My body has recovered. I'm here today to bid farewell to Madam Xinyuan. She looked at the woman in green, sitting by the stone table. At this moment, Madam Song said, Madam Xinyuan, Miss Kameng said she's leaving. She asked me to bring her here to bid farewell to you. Fengjiu calmly replied and looked at Kameng. Chapter 5031. Yes, I've disturbed you during this period of time. Now that I've recovered, it's time for me to leave. Kameng said softly. Then where are you going after you leave? Mia asked curiously. She heard from her mother that Kameng's family had been annihilated and she was the only one left. I haven't thought about it yet, but I'll take it one step at a time. I believe that there's always a way out, and I'll find a place to stay. She said softly and smiled at Song Mia. Mia knew that she must be smiling at this moment, but the veil was covering her face, so she couldn't see her smile. She also couldn't see how beautiful her face, which was praised as extremely beautiful by everyone in the residence, was behind this smile. For a moment, her heart skipped a beat, and she grinned. She walked forward and said, Miss Ku, your eyes are so beautiful. I've seen you twice, but I've never seen what you look like. Now you're leaving? Before you leave, can you at least let me see what you look like? Otherwise, I won't be able to recognize you when we meet outside. Kameng was stunned and looked at Song Mia. She narrowed her eyes and said, It's not that I don't want to let you see, but I'm afraid of scaring you. Hearing this, Madam Song was surprised and puzzled. Fengjiu, who was sitting at the table and drinking tea, paused. He took a sip and put down the teacup, then looked up. Song Mia was stunned. Scaring me? How could that be? Although I've never seen your face, I've heard the servants in the residence say that you're very beautiful. It's because they've been praising you that I'm curious to see how beautiful you are." Then she smiled and said, "Also, I'm very brave. Ordinary things can't scare me." Kumeng was a little hesitant. She didn't intend to let them see her disfigured face because she didn't want to scare them. She also didn't want to leave them with a frightening impression. Madame Song asked curiously, "What's wrong with Miss Ku's face? When I saw you wearing a veil today, I thought you wanted to cover your face so that you could walk around freely. Isn't that the case?" At this moment, whether it was Madame Song, Songmi, or even Fengjio, none of them would have thought that she would ruin her beautiful face. "Miss Ku, please take off your veil and let me see you. I'm speaking the truth. You're wearing a veil. If we meet outside in the future, I might not be able to recognize you." "Me?" said as she looked at her expectantly. Seeing this, Kumeng removed one side of her veil. When the veil fell to one side, revealing her ruined face, Madame Song and Songmi couldn't help but gasp. How could this happen?" Fengjio's gaze landed on Kumeng's face. His eyes flashed, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He really did not expect this. "I thought it would be safer this way." She tried her best to speak in a calm voice. Then, she slowly walked up to Fengjio and knelt down. Kumeng pays her respects to Madame Xianyuan. Kumeng will remember Madame Xuanyuan's great kindness. She bowed deeply to Madame Xianyuan. Unlike the slight curtsy she gave Madame Song, she bowed to Madame Xianyuan. Chapter 5032. Fengjio looked at the kneeling Kumeng, then lightly tapping her finger on the table, she said, "Since you have nowhere to go, I will show you the way." Hearing these words, Kumeng was startled and couldn't help but raise her head to look at her. "Me, brush and ink." Fengjio looked at Songmi, and said, "Okay, I will go get it immediately." Songmi replied, then ran to Yu's room and took out the brush, ink, and paper she usually used to practice writing. After placing the things on the table, she retreated to the side, and at the same time, looked at the kneeling Kumeng, somewhat shocked that she would destroy her own appearance. She was indeed ruthless to herself. For a woman to destroy her face like this, it could be seen how much determination she had. Fengjio wrote there, and the few people who didn't come close didn't know what she wrote. They only saw her write it, put it in an envelope, and sealed it, then wrote 2 sentences on another piece of paper, folded it, and handed it over to Kumeng. "Go, look at it after you leave the city. This paper has the address you want to go to, as well as the person you want to give this letter to. It is also written here." Hearing this, Kumeng received it and said, "Many thanks, Madame Xianyuan." She didn't ask anything and only put away the things she gave her, then stood up. Looking at her self-destroyed appearance, Fengjio sighed in her heart and said, "After your strength reaches high god realm, if you want to restore your appearance, you can come to Song family to find me." Hearing this, Kumeng's heart shook and involuntarily looked at her. Her disfigured appearance. She actually had the ability to restore it? At the same time, she suppressed her thoughts and said, "Many thanks, Madame Xianyuan. Kumeng will take her leave." Finished speaking, she bowed to Madame Song and Songmi, then turned around and left. "I will send her off," Songmi, said, then quickly followed and sent her out of the residence. Fengjio took out a communication jade and handed it to Madame Song and said, "This communication jade is for you. Keep it. If you have any matters in the future, you can use it to send messages." "Okay," Mrs. Song replied as she took it and put it away. Not long after, Songmi returned and asked curiously, "Mistress, where did you send her? Why don't you just say it directly? Why do you have to write it down on paper?" When Madame Song heard me call Fengjio master, her heart skipped a beat and a smile appeared on her face. After finding out about Fengjio's identity, she also found out that Mir had recognized her as her master. It was because of this that she came to the Song family and helped them so much. When they thought about how this crazy girl had accidentally recognized Fengjio as her master, they felt that it was inconceivable. Fengjio smiled and said, "I told her to go to the Jiang clan and look for immortal Elder Qinghua. As for whether she will go to the Jiang clan, that will be up to her. Hearing this, Song-mi understood. She knew immortal Elder Qinghua, who was the ancestor of the Jiang clan. With his arrangements, it would probably be a good place to go. However, whether Kameng would go to the Jiang clan or not, that would be up to her. However, when she thought about how she had left alone, Mirror's eyes turned, and she asked curiously, "Mistress, then why don't you keep Kameng by your side? She doesn't have any relatives left anyway. She's all alone." Chapter 5033. Mirror, you can't be so impudent. Madame Song scolded her daughter. Mirror stuck out her tongue and didn't say anything else. Fengjiu smiled. "It's fine. There aren't many rules around me." She looked at Song-mi and said, "I'll let you follow me because you have extraordinary culinary skills, and I just happen to lack someone like you by my side. Of course, the prerequisite is that I find you pleasing to the eye," she said with a smile, and seeing Song-mi smile after hearing her words, she continued, "As for Kameng, she doesn't have any outstanding characteristics, so why should I let her follow me? She's not strong enough to protect me, and she can't even be a servant. In terms of loyalty, she's even less so. Why would I keep someone like her by my side?" She held her cheek with one hand and said slowly, "However, there's one thing that surprised me. She dared to destroy her own face, so it's clear that she's a ruthless person. Since she dares to be so ruthless to herself, I'll show her the right path. That's the best I can do." Madame Song nodded in agreement. Indeed, even she wouldn't keep someone like Kameng by her side, let alone someone as noble and powerful as the Phoenix Lord. Song-mi seemed to understand. "Oh, I understand." At this moment, she was incomparably glad that she had outstanding culinary skills. "All right, Mirror, accompany Madame Xianyuan. I'll go back first." Madame Song smiled and returned to her courtyard. A few days later, when the Chung family in Longnan saw Chung Wanli and his entourage coming back, they were almost furious. "Who was it? Who did it?" Chung Wanshan, the head of the Chung family, roared, glaring at the Chung family guards kneeling in the hall. "Family head, it's cooking god Song Lingbo's Song family," one of the guards said with a trembling voice. "Cooking god Song Lingbo? A mere chef has the ability to cripple 4 of my Chung family's elders, and even dare to cripple my Chung Wanshan's younger brother? How dare the Song family?" The gloomy voice was mixed with a fierce, murderous aura and monstrous fury. His fist heavily smashed on the chair beside him. With a bang, the chair shattered into a pile of fragments. "Master Chef Song family? Impossible. No matter how famous their clan is, they can't cripple 4 of our Chung clan's consecrators." An old man walked in, followed by a few other old men. "Grand Elder." Chung Wanshan stood up and bowed when he saw them. The old man in the lead walked to a chair and sat down. He nodded at Chung Wanshan and looked at the guards. "Tell me in detail what exactly is going on." "It's like this. Second Master and the 4 elders went to the Song family to take a rainbow spirit stone from the Song family as a birthday gift for the patriarch. When they went, Song Lingbo and the others weren't at home." The guard explained the whole story in detail. "That's right. That woman also said. The guard didn't dare to continue. "Speak." Chung Wanshan was furious. He shouted at the top of his lungs. That woman said that if the Chung family came to apologize with a big gift, this matter would be over. Otherwise, let's see what will happen to Second Master and the others." The guard's voice became softer and softer. In the end, his head was almost on the ground. Chapter 5034. The Grand Supreme Elder narrowed his eyes and his expression darkened. A terrifying, murderous aura emanated from his body. "What an ignorant woman. She's seriously injured my Chung family members, and she still wants us to pay her a visit and apologize? She really deserves to die." Chung Wanshan spoke in a gloomy voice. His chest heaved violently due to his rage. At this moment, the Grand Supreme Elder asked again, "How does that woman look? How old is she? What are her characteristics? Tell me in detail. I like to see where this person has sprung out from and dared to speak such arrogant words." Yes, that woman was dressed in green robes. Her features could only be considered delicate and ordinary. There was nothing special about her. If there was anything special about her, it would be that her aura was terrifying. At that time, this subordinate had only glanced at her and felt his entire body turn cold. It was as if he had fallen into hell. It was extremely terrifying. Recalling the situation at that time, the guard's face turned pale, and he could not help but shiver. "Grand Supreme Elder, how should we deal with this matter?" Chung Wanshan looked at him and asked. His voice was filled with suppressed anger and murderous intent. The Grand Supreme Elder stroked his beard and paused before asking, "How is Wanli? As for the other High Elders, have they been examined by a doctor?" "I have. Their cultivations have been crippled, and their inner cores have been shattered. There is no possibility for them to cultivate for the rest of their lives. The 4 High Elders are now hanging on by a thread and are not far from death. As for Wanli, aside from his cultivation being crippled, there are many wounds on his body. Even if he doesn't die immediately, he will be a cripple in the future, even if he survives." As he spoke, he clenched his fists tightly, and a cracking sound could be heard. That damned woman in green. He wished that he could personally cripple her and let her have a taste of living a life worse than death. To be able to cripple the 4 High Elders, this woman's cultivation must be very powerful. How about this? Send someone to investigate the woman's identity as described by the guard. The Grand Supreme Elders, and I will ask the Grand Supreme Elder for instructions and see how the Grand Supreme Elder will deal with this matter. All right, I'll arrange for someone to investigate. As Chung Wanshan spoke, he knew in his heart that the ancestors' final decision would most likely be to send a few Grand Elders to the Song clan and exterminate the Song clan along with the green-clothed woman. After all, crippling the Chung family was equivalent to slapping the Chung family in the face. With the Chung family's current status and power, how could they be bullied and humiliated by the Song family? If they did not destroy the Song family, how could the Chung family in Longnan in the future? That night, in a meeting hall of the Chung clan, the 9 experts of the Chung clan were all sitting in the hall, and at the main seat was a white-haired old man. His Grand Supreme Elder, his lips, pursed lips, he looked, Grand Supreme Elders. What else is there to see? Grand. To be. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s, but it was hard to say how old his bones were. After all, those who could sit in this meeting hall were naturally not ordinary people. Yes, the Song family must be destroyed to prove the might of the Chung family in Longnan. Another person said. Chapter 5035. Chung Wanshan shook his head and said, "No, there's almost no such person. There aren't many women who have such powerful strength, but after checking all of them, there's no one who matches. Until now, we still don't know who that woman is. It's just a Song family, a woman of unknown origin. What's there to worry about? Kill them if you need to, destroy them if you need to. It's not a big deal." The one who spoke was a woman in her 30s. She wore a red dress that was slightly revealing. She sat leisurely and played with her slender fingers from time to time. The survival of the family was like an ant to her. Hearing everyone's words, the old man in the main seat stroked his beard and looked at them, saying, "Since that's the case, I'll let you make a trip. In a few days, it'll be my birthday. Come back quickly." The people who spoke earlier looked at each other and smiled. They all cupped their hands and said, "Okay, we'll make a trip personally. When the time comes, we'll give the Song family's Rainbow Spirit Stone to the ancestor as a birthday gift." "Haha, then I'll wait for your return." The old man in the main seat smiled. He stroked his beard and squinted his eyes, saying, "I believe that the destruction of the Song family will make my Chung family's reputation even greater." Everyone in the hall looked at each other and revealed an indescribable smile. The few people who spoke did not stay any longer. They got up and headed to the Song family together. Just as the ancestor said, they had to go quickly and return quickly. With their strength, dealing with the Song family and the woman of unknown origin was just a matter of making a trip. The result was already predetermined. Chung Wanshan stood outside the meeting hall and looked at the sky. The figures of the Grand Elders had long disappeared. With the Grand Elders' cultivation and strength, it wouldn't take long for them to reach the Song family. Song family, and that woman just wait to be destroyed. Song family on this day. Fengjiu accompanied the 3 children out for a walk and returned. She let them practice their movement skills in the courtyard while she went into her room and took out a book to read. These days in the Song clan, she was relatively free every day. Therefore, she was able to spare some time to find a way to break the isolation between the Heaven Realm and the other Heaven Realms. In the past 2 days, she had found some clues about this in an ancient book. Thus, she had been flipping through it, hoping to solve this problem as soon as possible. As long as she could solve the problem of the isolation of the Heaven Realm, she would be able to freely travel back and forth between the Heaven Realm. This was very important to her. She flipped through the books in her room, and the children in the courtyard did not disturb her. It was only in the evening when Mir delivered dinner and knocked on her door that she walked out. "Mistress, my father made something delicious again today. Come and have a taste." Me, said with a smile as she scooped a bowl of soup for her and talked about the interesting things that had happened today. As Fengjiu listened, he looked at the sky and said, "Another day has passed." For the past few days, there had been no movement from the Chung family. She thought that if she stayed for another 10 days, there would definitely be movement. At that time, it would be clear whether the Chung clan would be exterminated or not. Chapter 5036. It seems that the people from the Chung clan are here. Fengjiu curled her lips and murmured softly. Her gaze fell on the darkening sky. At this moment, a powerful pressure and aura enveloped the entire Song clan. It was as if the entire Song clan was trapped within. Almost at the same time, the people of the Song family sensed it. Song Lingbo was the first to walk out. Seeing that the entire mansion was surrounded by a powerful aura, he immediately ordered in a deep voice, "Get everyone to return to their rooms. Secret guards and elite guards guard the entire manor." "Yes, sir." A sonorous and powerful voice responded, and the secret guards and elite guards in the mansion quickly made arrangements. Because the leader of the Song family had already told them what to do, everyone in the manor had been preparing so that they would not panic when the danger came. "Is it the Chung family?" Mrs. Song followed him out and asked worriedly. "Who else could it be?" Song Lingbo said, "Mrs. Song, go back to your room and don't come out. I will go check it out." Knowing that she could not help him, Mrs. Song did not add to the trouble. Seeing him walk to the front yard, Mrs. Song said to the secret guard, "Go tell Yi Hong and the others to come here." "Understood." A voice rang out, and a silhouette flashed past, heading towards the courtyards of the others. In the yard, Mir and Hauer were playing in the manor. When they felt the force enveloping the entire Song manor, they all stopped and looked up. The sky had darkened. There was not a single star in sight. The moon was also covered by dark clouds. "Let's go back to the yard first." Mir saw that something was wrong and quickly led the 3 to the backyard. She did not expect to run into her 3 brothers. "Big brother, second brother, third brother." Mir quickly walked up and asked, "Where are you going?" "Let's go check it out." "Mir, take them to Mother's place in the main yard. Don't come out even if you hear the sound. We will be outside. Just take care of Mother," Song Yihong said. "But no buts. Can't you see that the entire Song manor is enveloped by that powerful force? There must be a lot of people from a Chung family. Go," Song Yifun shouted. Seeing this, Mir quickly brought Hao and the others to the main courtyard. "Don't we need to look for Mother?" asked in a low voice. "No need. Mistress will definitely go to the front yard. You don't have to worry about her. Just take good care of yourselves." "Me," said as she hurried towards the main yard. The faces of the elders in the Song clan turned ashen. They looked at the invisible aura in the air and couldn't help but mutter, "It's over, it's over. Our Song clan is finished this time." The Chung clan had really come. Moreover, the moment they arrived, they had trapped the entire Song clan. It was obvious that they didn't want them to have a chance to escape. This time, it was likely that they wouldn't be able to escape. At this moment, there were 4 people standing outside the gate of the Song family. They were 2 old men, a middle-aged man, and a woman in red. After seeing the old man trap the entire Song family in a barrier, they looked at each other and smiled. This way, no one from the Song family will be able to escape. Chapter 5037. The woman in red gently lifted a strand of hair that had fallen across her face and gently twirled it between her fingers. There was a disdainful smile on her face, and a murderous look flashed across her eyes as she stared at the residents in front of her. She seemed to have thought of something and chuckled softly. "The rest of the Song family members are yours. As for that green-robed woman, I'll take her life." She paused and laughed viciously. "Only when she falls into my hands will she be able to experience a fate worse than death." The middle-aged man glanced at her and said, "I've heard from the guards that this green-robed woman is very powerful. To avoid any mistakes, I'll go with you." Hearing this, the woman in red scoffed disapprovingly. "What? Don't you trust me? Do you think that I would lose to a woman who had appeared out of nowhere? The two of you will go together." The elder next to her spoke up and glanced at the two of them. "Yuehong, you'll deal with that green-robed woman. If you think that she's too difficult to deal with, then we'll fight 2 against 1. No matter what method you use, this woman must die. I don't want any accidents to happen." Seeing that he had spoken, the woman in red did not say anything else. She only pursed her lips and listened to him speak. Aside from Song Lingbo, there aren't many other capable people in the Song family. Number 4, you deal with Song Lingbo and the others. As for me, I'll go to the Song family ancestors' closed-door cultivation in the back of the mountain and force him to come out. Then I'll kill him and take the Rainbow Spirit Stone back as a birthday gift for the ancestor. Hearing this, the 4 of them looked at each other and replied in unison, "All right, it's decided." Once they had spoken, 3 of them leaped into the Song family home, while the other took a detour and headed toward the mountain behind the Song family home. Based on their refined state of power, destroying a mere Song family was a piece of cake. Even if they had known that the green-robed woman was very powerful, none of the 4 of them thought much of her. When the 3 of them leaped into the Song family home and landed in the front courtyard, they saw that aside from Song Lingbo and his 3 sons, there were only a few elders in the front courtyard. It seems that these elders were the elders of the Song family. However, in their eyes, their powers were nothing. Song Lingbo, the elder among the 3, opened his mouth and spoke. His gaze fell upon Song Lingbo. "Are you prepared to die?" Song Lingbo stared at the 3 of them, shielding his 3 sons behind him, using his own aura to protect them from the pressure of the Supreme Being experts. He then asked, "The 3 of you are 3 of the 9 Supreme Beings from the Chung clan?" "That's right." They were very clear that the Song clan would die in the end. Therefore, they were not in a hurry to kill them. The old man's sharp gaze landed on him as he said, "My Chung clan already knows that your Song clan colluded with others to kill my Chung clan members. We came here tonight to take the lives of your Song clan members. Of the Song of the Song of the Song of the Song. Of the Song family home." Chapter 50:38. His laughter abruptly stopped as his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "In this world, the strong rule. You want the Chung family to apologize to the Song family? Huh, you really don't know what you're talking about." Hearing his words, the faces of the elders turned pale. They came to Song Lingbo's side and asked anxiously, "Lingbo, you told us not to worry. What plan do you have? Now that the Chung family is here, why don't you say something?" They were really anxious. The Chung family had come knocking on their door, and 3 of the Chung 9 Supremes had come. If only 2 of them had come, their old bones and Song Lingbo might have been able to contend against them. But now that there were 3 of them, it was a different story. Even if they gave it their all, they would not be able to fight against 3 Supremes. Song Lingbo pursed his lips and did not speak. "What about that woman?" The woman in red asked impatiently. When the elders heard her words, they immediately took a step forward and asked, "What woman?" "Let me tell you, even if we have to fight to the death today, we will not let you hurt a single person from the Song family." "With just you?" The woman in red laughed coldly as a murderous intent flashed in her eyes. Suddenly, she raised her hand and threw a hidden weapon at the elder in front. "Since you're in such a hurry to die, I'll grant you your wish." Whoosh! A sharp chi blade carrying the pressure of a Supreme Being expert shot out, heading straight for the elder at the front. The intention was to catch him off guard and kill him, letting the Song clan members feel the fear of death before them. "Be careful. When the hidden weapon shot out, it was so fast that only its shadow could be seen. But the aura of a Supreme's was so strong that it could not be ignored. Song Lingbo stepped forward and stood in front of the elder, preparing to shoot down the hidden weapon. Unexpectedly, a clanging sound rang out, and the hidden weapon that even he couldn't see clearly was shot down to the ground. Clang! Song Lingbo and his 3 sons were stunned. They saw that not far in front of them, beside the hidden weapon, a gold coin had also fallen. Who is it? When the woman in red saw her hidden weapon being knocked down, her face immediately turned gloomy. Feng Jiu walked over from distance. He was dressed in green and had a plain and ordinary appearance. However, his clear and cold eyes were calm and indifferent. Her pace was neither fast nor slow, and her aura was restrained, making it impossible for others to see through her cultivation. "Sorry, I'm late." Feng Jiu smiled apologetically at the Song clan members. With a wave of his hand, a few items were tossed over to the 3 Song clan brothers. The 3 Song brothers looked at the things that fell into their hands or arms in astonishment and couldn't help but be stunned. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that these 3 items were top-notch treasures. But where did they come from? In contrast to the astonishment of the Song clan members, the 3 Chung clan members were shocked. Their hearts were in turmoil as they cried out involuntarily, "How did those things end up in your hands?" Feng Jiu smiled and said to the Song clan members, "When I was on my way here, I took care of an old man who snuck in, which delayed me a little. I took those things from him, so I'll give them to you." Her gaze moved away from the Song clan members and landed on the 3 of them as she smiled faintly. Chapter 5039. You've killed him? That's impossible. The elder cried out in shock, unable to believe what she had just said. The middle-aged man and the woman in red's expressions turned serious. Was it impossible? If it was impossible, how could those 3 items be in her hands? How could she have given them away as a gift? After all, those 3 items were the Grand Supreme Elder's treasures. At this moment, they finally put away the contempt and disapproval in their hearts and reassessed this unremarkable woman in green robes. To be able to kill a cultivator at the peak of the refined state without making a single sound, this woman's power was far too terrifying. "Who on earth are you?" the middle-aged man asked cautiously. At this moment, he suddenly realized that if they were not careful, all 3 of them would die here tonight. However, they shouldn't have never heard of a woman with such powerful strength. "I've given the Chung family a way out, but since you insist on walking down the path of death, don't blame me for what happens next." Feng Jiu replied calmly as her clear and cold eyes fell upon their faces. "Now that things have come to this, why don't you think about how you want to die? Perhaps I can grant you your wish. You launched a sneak attack, didn't you? Based on the Grand Supreme Elder's cultivation, how could it have been killed by you without making a single sound if you had fought him head-on? You launched a sneak attack." The woman in red's voice was sinister as she spoke. With a wave of her hand, a long sword appeared in her hand. "No matter how powerful you are, could you possibly be more powerful than the 3 of us combined?" She stared darkly at her, thinking about how her disciple, Chung Wanli, had been crippled by this woman and how the Grand Supreme Elder had been killed by this woman. Her heart was filled with murderous intent. "I'm going to break the tendons in your limbs. I'm going to chop off your hands. I'm going to gouge out your eyes and hang them in front of the Song family's main gate. I'm going to slice off your flesh piece by piece." She spat hatefully. Then, she clenched the sharp sword in her hand and charged towards the figure in green in front of her. Feng Jiu curled his lips and chuckled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. She didn't dodge, nor did she dodge. Instead, she watched as the woman in red attacked her with her sword. Only when the tip of the sword was right in front of her did she stretch out her hand and clamp down on the blade. At the tip of the sword, the pressure and sword aura of a supreme being expert had naturally dissipated before it even touched Feng Jiu. At this moment, she was gently holding the sword between 2 fingers, and the woman in red was unable to advance even an inch further. Yes, the woman in red clenched her teeth and strengthened her spiritual power. She wanted to stab her sword into the woman's throat, but the sword couldn't go any further. Fengjiu looked at the woman in red in front of him and said in a calm and indifferent voice, "Do you know why you didn't make any noise?" At this moment, although she was holding the sharp sword, her aura still did not leak out at all. She pursed her lips and narrowed her eyes, because he doesn't even have the power to retaliate. As she spoke, she released a powerful aura from her body and instantly enveloped the woman in red. Chapter 5040. A chill rose from the soles of her feet and shot straight to her heart. A bone-piercing chill filled her entire being, making her feel as if she had fallen into an abyss. Cold sweat broke out on her back, and her hair stood on end. At that moment, she felt as if a pair of ghostly hands were clutching her throat, making it impossible for her to breathe. She froze on the spot. Fengjiu's fingers, which were holding her sharp blade, moved forward and snatched the sharp sword from her hand. He turned it around and held it in his hand. A cold light flashed, and the sound of the sword's aura filled the air. The sound of clothes tearing could be heard as pieces of red shards fell chaotically to the ground, revealing the woman's undergarments. She froze on the spot with her eyes wide open. She stared at the green-robed woman who had snatched her sword in horror and shock. At that moment, she finally understood why there had been no commotion when the Grand Supreme Elder had been killed. It was all because this woman was far too powerful. "You're wearing red. You're really an eyesore." Fengjiu spoke slowly. He raised the sword in his hand and placed it against her neck. "Even though I'd really like to grant you your wish of dying, I reckon that death would be far too ugly. Why don't we change it?" The woman's eyes narrowed. She wanted to speak, but she couldn't make a sound. At that moment, she only saw a cold light flash past, and a cold feeling came from her throat. In the next moment, she fell to the ground. When the elder and middle-aged man from the Chung family saw this, they could not help but take a step back. Their eyes were filled with horror and shock. They could not believe that a cultivator at the refined state had been killed by the green-robed woman's sword right in front of their very eyes. Furthermore, she had been completely defenseless. This scene was too shocking, to the point that they forgot to react at that moment. Their hearts were filled with fear that came from trembling. They knew that they should run away immediately. However, their feet felt as if they had been injected with lead. They were so heavy that they could not move even half a step. If they were already in such a state, there was no need to mention the elders from the Song family. At that moment, their eyes were wide open as they watched in disbelief. At this moment, they finally understood why this woman, called Madame Xianyuan, had said that there was no need to worry with her here. She was truly very strong. The middle-aged man from the Chung family was the first to react. Looking at the woman in green who was looking at them with a sword in her hand, his expression immediately changed, and he exclaimed, "Sir, please wait a moment." He was afraid that if he spoke too slowly, the other party's sword would turn, and they would fall to the ground like the dead Yuhong. After becoming supreme being experts, they cherished their lives more than anyone else. Given the current situation, no matter what, they had to find a way to survive. "What do you want to say before you die? Speak." Fengjiu didn't really care. In her eyes, these two people were already dead. She didn't mind letting them finish their last words. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's heart sank. He had originally wanted to open his mouth to seek a chance of survival, but at this moment he clearly understood that no matter what he said, no matter what he did, he would not be able to escape death. Chapter 5041. If a dignified, honorable state cultivator died without knowing who killed her, it would be too cowardly of a death. Fengjiu raised her brows and glanced at the two of them. The corners of her lips curled up as she slowly said, "My name is Fengjiu." Fengjiu. The two men from the Chung family narrowed their eyes. Clearly, they knew who that name was. They stared in shock at the calm woman in green robes in front of them. Waves of shock surged in their hearts. "Fengjiu, the Empress Phoenix Master. It's actually her. Heavens, how did our Chung family offend such a person?" The old man staggered back, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. He seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. His face was ghastly pale as he muttered, "It's the Empress Phoenix Master. The heavens want to destroy our Chung family. The heavens want to destroy our Chung family. At this moment, the middle-aged man's face was ghastly pale as well. He looked at Feng Jiu, who wore green clothes, and her ordinary appearance. At this moment, he finally understood why they couldn't find any information about this person. She was in disguise. The Empress Phoenix Master. How could our Chung family stand a chance against such an existence? She was able to kill the Northern Flame Emperor all by herself and change the ruler of the Northern Flame Emperor's territory in a single night. They had only heard of such a terrifying figure in legends, but now she was standing right in front of them, alive and well, and they were trying to kill her. Would the Chung family still have a way out after doing all this? I don't dare to trouble the Phoenix Master. I will take my own life. The old man's voice trembled as he looked at Feng Jiu. I know that the Chung family is doomed. I only hope that the Phoenix Master can be magnanimous and spare the descendants of the Chung family. I will be eternally grateful. With that, he knelt down with a thud and bowed deeply to Feng Jiu. After kowtowing 3 times, he raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down. Seeing the old man slap himself on the top of his head, the middle-aged man's heart trembled. He pursed his lips and knelt beside the old man's corpse, bowing deeply to Feng Jiu. Phoenix Lord, please be magnanimous and leave a way out for our Chung family's descendants. As soon as he finished, he did not wait for Feng Jiu to speak and slapped himself on the top of his head. Blood spurted out. After the middle-aged man fell to the ground, everything in the courtyard returned to normal. No one spoke, and even the sound of breathing could not be heard. Only the gentle night breeze blew past, blowing away the smell of blood in the air. Feng Jiu's eyes flashed as he looked at the 2 corpses. These 2 knew that death was the only way out for them, but they still didn't forget to ask for a way out for the future generations of the Chung family. She gently exhaled and threw the sword in her hand beside the woman's corpse. Then, she turned to look at Song Lingbo and slowly said, "We will leave tomorrow and go to the Chung family to help you settle the last of your troubles. You can deal with the corpses on the ground." As soon as she finished speaking, she didn't stay any longer and walked back to the rear courtyard. After watching her leave, Song Lingbo stepped forward and collected the items on the corpses. He handed them to his eldest son and said, "Take these to Madame Xianyuan. Also, tell your mother that the matter has been resolved. Don't worry." Chapter 5042. Song Lingbo instructed the hidden guards to dispose of the corpses. When he turned around, he saw that the elders were still standing there in a daze. He walked up to them and called out, "First elder." Seeing that they didn't respond, he patted the first elder's shoulder and asked, "First elder, The first elder came back to his senses and looked at Song Lingbo in front of him. He recalled what happened earlier and asked, "Lingbo, just now, Madame Xianyuan said that her name is..." He was interrupted before he could finish. "Let's go back and talk. Let them clean up here," Song Lingbo said and gave him a look. Although they were all from a Song manor, it was not appropriate for them to discuss the Phoenix Master's status. All right. Let's go in and talk." The first elder also came back to his senses and nodded. He took a deep breath and looked at the corpses being carried away. He was still a little dizzy. He couldn't believe that the Song family's crisis had been resolved just like that. He couldn't believe that Madame Xianyuan was actually the Empress Phoenix Master. That night, Song Lingbo roughly explained the situation with Feng Jiu to them, then went to arrange other matters. The next morning, Feng Jiu, Song Mi-er, and the 3 children were accompanied by the Song family to the main gate. Along the way, Song Lingbo and Madame Xianyuan occasionally reminded me to take care of herself and to stay by Feng Jiu's side and do her work seriously. "Father, Mother, I know. You don't have to worry." Mi-er smiled and said, "It's not like I won't be coming home. If there's a chance in the future, I'll come back. Listen to Madame Xianyuan well. Don't cause trouble outside," Song Lingbo reminded. I know. Mi-er replied and quickly ran to Hao and the other 2, afraid that they would continue nagging. "Let's stop here." Feng Jiu looked at them and smiled. "Thank you for taking care of us during this time. You're too kind. Madame Xianyuan is too kind." It's the Song family's fortune to be able to welcome an important guest like Madame Xinyuan. One of the elders hurriedly said. Feng Jiu smiled and said goodbye to them. After the matter with the Chung family is settled, I'll have me inform you. Goodbye. With that, he left with me, and the 3 children. Longnan Chung family at this time. The Chung family was shrouded in a dark cloud. The atmosphere was oppressive and terrifying. The servants and the residents were trembling with fear, not daring to make a single mistake. Cheng's. Chung Wanshan. Chung, of... After a long while, the Chung family's ancestor said, I asked you to come here early in the morning to tell you that this is what happened. Now that their origin spirit lamps have been extinguished, what do you think we should do next? This was something he didn't expect. In one night, none of the 4 Supremes who went to the Song family came back alive. In the lantern house where they worshipped their origin spirit lamps, 4 of them were extinguished. This was no small matter for the Chung family. If they weren't careful, it could lead to the extinction of the family. Chapter 5043. I'm afraid things won't end like this. Another person said in a deep voice. He looked at the ancestor and said solemnly, Originally, the guards who came back alive brought the woman's words. She said that as long as our Chung clan brought gifts to apologize, this matter would be over. However, our Chung clan didn't send anyone to apologize. Instead, we sent 4 Supreme Being cultivators to destroy the Song clan. Now that the 4 of them are dead, if I'm not wrong, our Chung clan's next target will be the Chung clan. Hearing this, the hall fell silent. Obviously, they had also thought of this point and guessed this possibility. To be able to kill the 4 of them, could it be that the green-robed woman alone? Maybe she had other helpers in the dark. That's why the 4 of them were killed. Chung Wanshan said. He still found it hard to believe that the woman alone could kill the 4 supreme martial artists of their Chung clan. The problem at hand is no longer about who killed the 4 of them. Instead, we need to discuss what we should do next. Only then will we be able to protect our Chung clan. If we don't handle this well, it will be a disaster that will wipe out our entire clan. If we knew this would happen, we would have sent someone to visit that day. Then, this wouldn't have happened. An old man sitting at the back shook his head and sighed. His voice paused for a moment before he continued. The Supreme Elder is at the peak of the Supreme Martial Artist level, and his strength is above all of us. In the entire Chung clan, only the old ancestor is slightly stronger than him. Think about it. What kind of existence would a person who could kill him and prevent him from even having the chance to send us a message be? Could it be someone from a hidden clan? Someone asked and couldn't help but ponder. The old man shook his head and sighed. I'm worried that our Chung clan will be wiped out. This matter is no small matter. We can't just sit and wait for death. We have to make arrangements as soon as possible so that we won't be caught off guard. Yes, I have the same idea. The elder ancestor nodded and said, cancel the birthday banquet. Make arrangements in the residence. Also, his hand that was stroking his beard paused for a moment. He hesitated for a moment before saying, quickly send the younger generation of the Chung family away. Let them lie low for a while. If our Chung family can survive this ordeal, then let them come back. Hearing this, everyone's hearts were unusually heavy. They who had seen too much of the world knew that they had been careless this time. This matter didn't need to develop to this stage, but now. Everyone, you don't have to think too seriously about this matter. After all, there's still so many of us here. Things may not have reached the point of no return. Chung Wanshan said, trying to make everyone relax. However, no one paid attention to him. Everyone present had lived for such a long time. How could they not be able to tell whether it was a tribulation or not at this moment? I'm going to make some arrangements and prepare to set up a defensive formation in the mansion. An old man stood up and said before leaving. The others left one after another. In the end, only the Chung clan elder and Chung Wanshan were left in the hall. Looking at the empty hall, Chung Wanshan's face darkened and said, Elder Ancestor. Chapter 5044. Yes, Chung Wanshan replied. Now that things had come to this was the only arrangement they could make. They only hoped that the woman would not dare to come. Otherwise, this would be a battle of life and death. The fear within the Chung family made the descendants of the Chung family feel that something was amiss, especially after batches of young disciples were secretly sent away. Outside, the people who were originally prepared to attend the Chung family's birthday banquet were surprised when they heard that the banquet was canceled. The people of various aristocratic families and forces were keenly aware of the unusual atmosphere. After all, the invitations to the Chung family's birthday banquet had been sent out long ago. Now that it was canceled, and the reason was not explained in detail, even a 3-year-old child would not believe that there was nothing unusual about it. Some people secretly asked around and found out that the Chung family had lost 4 supreme martial artists for some unknown reason. The younger generation of the Chung family had been secretly sent away. The Chung family had provoked some extraordinary people this time, and even secretly invited some experts who were on good terms with them to the Chung family. The entire Chung family was preparing for the battle, so naturally, no one was in the mood for the birthday banquet. The Chung family spent their days in this tense and worried atmosphere. They did not know when the Chung family's disaster would befall them. They were vigilant almost every day and did not dare to relax for a moment. They even sent people to secretly watch the city gate. Once they found someone from the outside, they would immediately report back. A few days later, Feng Jiao, Mi-er, and the 3 children stepped into the territory of Longnan. On this day, after they entered the city, they found an inn to rest. The Chung family guard squatting at the city gate, dressed in beggar's clothes, was shocked when he saw Feng Jiao. He almost did not dare to take a second look and lowered his head. After seeing them enter the inn, he quickly ran to the Chung family. Family head, Chung Wanshan, who was discussing matters with the ancestor and the others in the hall, saw the guard in beggar's clothes running in a panic. With a gloomy face, he shouted, "What are you doing in such a panic? What's the matter? If you have something to say it quickly." Seeing the ancestor and the others in the hall, the guard in beggar's clothes suppressed the panic in his heart. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Family head, it's that woman. That woman is here. You said that woman is here?" The patriarch at the main seat immediately sat up. No one noticed that his body trembled at that moment. He steadied his voice and stared at the guard dressed as a beggar. There was a hint of urgency in his voice as he asked, "How many people did they send? Where are they now? Are they heading towards our Chung clan?" "It's that woman. I saw her clearly. She's the woman in green who asked me to bring a message back." The guard clenched his fists and felt cold sweat seeping out his palms. He took a deep breath and said, "There are a total of 5 of them. Other than the woman in green, there's a girl around 15 or 16 years old, a boy around 11 or 12 years old, and 2 younger children." Hearing this, the Chung family members looked at each other in shock. The Chung family's ancestor frowned and asked, "Are you sure? That woman didn't bring any helpers, but only a young girl and 3 children? No one else?" Chapter 5045. Hearing this, the Chung family ancestor clasped his hands behind his back and frowned as he walked around the hall. When the other supreme being cultivators of the Chung family heard this, they did not say anything and lowered their heads. No one knew what they were thinking about. Only Chung Wanshan heard this and immediately laughed. "Ancestor, I think your worries are unnecessary. She's just a woman. How strong can she be? Since she dares to come here, I'll bring my men over and destroy her as soon as possible." He thought that his words would gain the ancestor's approval. However, he did not expect the ancestor to look at him with a malicious and cold gaze. He was so shocked that he could not keep his smile, and it froze on his face. "Brainless good-for-nothing." The Chung family ancestor scolded in a gloomy voice and snorted heavily. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned around and walked to the main seat and sat down. He stared at Chung Wanshan, who was sweating profusely, and said in a gloomy voice, "How did I let you become the master of the Chung family? You don't even have this bit of foresight. Now that the Chung family is facing a disaster, you can't escape responsibility." When these words were spoken, most of them were to vent their anger. Because the Chung family was facing a disaster, there was no way to avoid it. Now that he heard these words, he did not know that the disaster was imminent. Therefore, he was very angry, and at the same time, he was venting the anxiety and uneasiness in his heart. Being scolded in front of everyone, Chung Wanshan lowered his head and did not dare to show his dissatisfaction and anger. This was because the ancestor was the one who decided everything in the Chung family. Not to mention being scolded. Even if he was killed, no one would dare to say anything. If what the guard said is true, and she only brought a young girl and 3 children, then there's only one possibility. At this moment, an elder spoke up and looked at the ancestor with a serious expression. That is, her strength is so strong that she alone is enough to shake the entire Chung family. When these words were spoken, the hall fell silent. It was so quiet that even breathing could be heard. In fact, everyone present had thought of this. If the other party had brought helpers, then it would be fine. However, if she really came alone, then her strength was so strong that it was terrifying. I suddenly remembered that among the women, there's only one who has such strength at this age. One of the old men said. At this moment, his face was a little pale, and he didn't seem to be in good spirits. Who is it? The others in the hall looked at him and asked. The old man raised his head and looked at them. After taking a deep breath, he suppressed his fluctuating emotions and said, Empress, Phoenix Master. Hiss. This is impossible. The Chung family's ancestor sucked in a breath of cold air. He was originally sitting in the main seat, but due to his shock, he leaned back in his chair. Although it was impossible, his expression showed that he also had this guess. Other than that person, who else do you think it could be? The old man looked at them and sighed softly. Who has the ability to kill 4 of us, supreme being experts by himself? Who would dare to come to Longnan alone? The reason why I couldn't find out the identity of the girl in green was because I didn't think of that person. But now that I think of it, everything matches. Chapter 5046. The heavens want to destroy our Chung clan. The Chung clan's ancestor mumbled. The battle intent that he had been holding on to all this time disappeared at this moment. They knew that if it was really that person, then no matter how many powerhouses they invited to help, it would be useless. Unless she is merciful, our Chung family will be exterminated. Thinking of this, everyone fell silent. After a while, the Chung clan's ancestor said in a deep voice, There's only one way. Everyone looked at him and asked, Ancestor, what good plan do you have? We go and apologize and commit suicide so that the Chung clan's descendants can have a chance to live. The Chung clan's ancestor said as he took a deep breath and stood up. He looked at them and said, This is the only way now. If we wait for her to come, I'm afraid that no one in our Chung clan will survive. The few supreme beings listened and fell silent for a moment. If they did that, they might be able to have a chance to live for their descendants, but they would be dead. It wasn't easy to live to their age. They naturally cherished their lives, but was there any other way? Is there no other way? One of them couldn't help but ask. The Chung clan's ancestor didn't say anything. At this moment, Chung Wanshan looked at the ancestor and said, I have an idea. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but look at him and ask, what idea? Even the Chung clan's ancestor looked at him, wanting to know what else he could think of. Seeing the ancestor looking at him, Chung Wanshan had an idea and said, Didn't the guard say that she brought a young lady and 3 children with her? We can capture the young lady and the 3 children and threaten her to leave Longnan and not lay a hand on our Chung clan. Are you tired of dying too slowly? The Chung clan's ancestor's face darkened and turned gloomy. If we really do that, we will have no way out for our Chung clan's descendants. But ancestor, even if we beg her, will she really let our Chung clan's descendants go? Won't she kill everyone in our Chung clan? If we follow my plan and succeed, our Chung family will be able to avoid this calamity and the elders won't have to die. Chung Wanshan looked at the elders as he spoke. He knew that some of them were tempted. After all, no one would be willing to die if they could live. I agree. We could try this method. An old man said as he looked at the Chung clan's ancestor. Wanshan is right. Even if we went to apologize, would she really let the rest of our Chung clan off? Why don't we give it a try? I agree as well. Another old man also spoke up. I feel like we should go and sound her out first. An old man said. He looked at the others and said, Didn't you say she was in the inn? Let's go take a look first. If it doesn't work, I'll take the second step. The Chung clan's ancestor sighed and said, since all of you have said so, then let's go take a look. Before that, let's send the experts we invited away first so that they won't be implicated. Therefore, they agreed and went to prepare. After sending off the experts invited by the manor, they let the guards lead the way and went to the inn. Chapter 5047. When the venerated elders of the Chung family left, almost all the aristocratic families in the city were the first to receive the news. Some sent people to keep an eye on them, while others came out personally to see what was going on. Ancestor, the 3 children came with that woman. The guard who led the way looked at the 3 children sitting by the window on the first floor. The Chung family's ancestor looked over and saw the 3 children sitting there drinking water and eating snacks. They chatted from time to time and pointed at the things on the street outside with a smile. The 3 of them were indeed young, as the guard said, but with one look, it was obvious that they were not children of ordinary families. They should be from a prestigious family. When they appeared, Hao also noticed them. After secretly sizing them up, Hao guessed that these people should be from the Chung family. Perhaps they noticed how Er's gaze elsewhere. Mu Chun and Yu also looked at the door. After a glance, they turned back. Yu asked, why are they staring at us? They should be from the Chung family. Mu Chun said and drank the water in his cup. He said to Yu go in and see if Sister Mi is done cooking. Oh, Yu saw her brother, sending her to the kitchen and didn't say much. She responded and went to the kitchen. Because of their arrival, the people in the inn were quickly cleared out by the Chung family. In the entire inn, only Hao and the others were still sitting at the table. Outside the inn, the Chung family's guards were guarding, not allowing anyone to come close. Children, the woman in green, who came with you? Do you know her identity? The Chung family's ancestor stepped forward and asked. Hearing this, Hao and Mu Chun looked at each other. Hao said, you found this place? Don't tell me you don't know. The Chung family's ancestors' eyes flashed. Seeing the 2 children sitting there without a trace of panic or fear and even daring to say such things to him, his heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Sure enough, they were not children from ordinary families. It was rare for them to have such temperament at this age. In the kitchen, Yu came to Song Mi-er's side. Sister Mi-er, the Chung family is outside. My second senior brother told me to come in and tell you. As she spoke, she tiptoed to pinch a piece of meat and put it into her mouth. She even put her little finger into her mouth and licked it. When Mi-er heard her words, she turned around and caught a glimpse of it. She couldn't help but exclaim, how can you eat your fingers? Did you wash your hands? You can't put your fingers in your mouth. As she spoke, she brought her to the side to wash her hands. Are you hungry? Let me get you something to eat first. Yu beamed with smiles and let her help her wash her hands, while said, just now I washed my hands. You can't put your fingers in your mouth even if you wash your hands. It's dirty. Mia said. After washing her hands, she picked up a bowl and chopsticks and passed some food to her. She asked, the Chung family is here? Your 2 senior brothers are outside? When they were outside, she had always remembered that she could not expose their identities. And they're still sitting there. Yu took the bowl and chopsticks, then went to the small chair and sat down to eat. Chapter 5048. Yu chewed on the food in her mouth and said, my senior brother told me to come in and tell you that he won't let you go out. Hearing this, Yu widened her eyes and said, won't let me go out? How can that be? There's only the 2 of them outside. You coughed, does madam know? I have to go take a look. After saying that, he pulled her hand away and walked out in large strides. Seeing this, Yu originally wanted to follow, but seeing that the food in her bowl was not finished and the fire was still simmering, she continued to eat while looking at the fire in the stove. In any case, with her mother around, nothing would happen. At this time, Feng Zhou opened the door of the guest room on the 2nd floor and walked out. She was wearing a simple green robe, and her black hair was draped over her back. Because she had just taken a bath, she looked lazy. She walked to the railing and stood there looking down. Her gaze landed on the people of the Chung clan and asked, is there something you want? Seeing her, it was almost needless to say that the Chung clan's ancestor and the others knew that it was her. Looking at her ordinary appearance and the simple green robe, they knew that she had changed her appearance. Thus, the Chung clan's ancestor took a step forward and cupped his hands to greet her. This old man is the Chung clan's ancestor. Greetings to Madam. At this moment, because of nervousness, his heart was in a mess. Fengjiu slowly walked down the stairs and said, I haven't gone to find you, but you came to find me. Hearing this, the hearts of the Chung clan's people trembled. They slightly lowered their heads, not daring to look at her. Madam, this old man brought everyone of the Chung clan to apologize. We are willing to give you 10 precious treasures of our Chung clan and cripple our own cultivation. We only ask that Madam be magnanimous and spare our Chung clan this time. In the future, we will teach our descendants to do more good deeds and never forget Madam's kindness. Looking at her slowly walking down the stairs, the Chung clan's ancestor lifted his robe and knelt down, heavily kowtowing to her. The people outside the inn who were watching from afar couldn't help but be stunned when they saw this scene. Every one of them was shocked and stared in disbelief at the Chung clan's ancestor, who was kowtowing. Such a character, who could shake an entire town with a casual stomp of his foot, actually knelt before an inconspicuous girl in green. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have dared to believe it was true. Fengjiu stood in front of him and looked at the old man who was kneeling with his head on the ground. His eyes flashed. For people like them, if they crippled their own cultivation, they could only wait for death. Moreover, if they crippled their own cultivation, they wouldn't have much time left to live. She had some guesses as to why they had come to the inn to beg for a way out. After all, these people were powerhouses who had lived for hundreds of years. After knowing that the 4 people sent by the Chung clan had died, they should have guessed the Chung clan's final fate. She slowly walked over to the table where the 2 children were sitting and sat down. She slowly said, Although this world respects the strong, there is always a way out. Since you have come to beg me, I can spare your Chung family this time. But, hearing her words, the Chung family's ancestor's heart was filled with joy. He couldn't help but look at her, but when he heard her pause, his heart jumped again. Chapter 5049. Fengjiu glanced at him and said, Hand over all of the Chung clan's belongings and move out of Longnan within 3 days. Everyone in the Chung clan was shocked to hear that. Hand over all of the Chung clan's belongings and move out of Longnan within 3 days. Without the support of the Chung clan's wealth, the descendants of the Chung clan, who were used to living a luxurious life, would be thrown from heaven to hell. Without the Chung clan's wealth and cultivation resources, it would be difficult for them to produce any powerful cultivators in the future. Longnan was the root of the Chung clan for generations. If they moved out of Longnan, they would have to leave their hometown and settle down somewhere else. The Chung clan of Longnan would cease to exist. Apart from that, the experts of the Chung family who were in charge of the Chung family would also find it difficult to survive. Their cultivations had been crippled, and they only had a few days left to live. The Chung family's enemies for generations would definitely not let go of this opportunity. At that time, the Chung family would most likely be doomed. The Chung clan's ancestor could not help but bow at the thought of this. He knew that the Chung clan's future was bleak. However, if he agreed, the Chung clan's descendants would have a chance to live. If he disagreed, the entire clan would be wiped out. Fengjiu took a sip of her tea and said unhurriedly, Other than this, you have no other choice. Since you're here, you must know who I am. Even if you sent the Chung family's descendants away in advance, you should know that with my ability, I can kill them with a single word. Her words shocked everyone in the Chung clan, especially the Chung clan's ancestor. His lips trembled and his pupils constricted. His initial hesitation turned into determination after hearing her words. I'll listen to you, madam. Please give me 3 days to arrange everything. 3 days later, I'll personally bring the Chung clan's belongings to you and leave Longnan with them. He slowly knelt down, feeling helpless in his heart. However, he also knew that she was already being magnanimous and giving the Chung family a way out. If they were in her shoes, they might not be so merciful to the Song clan. I'll give you 3 more days. As for them, cripple their cultivations now. Feng Jiu looked at the elders behind her and said calmly. The elders looked at each other and gritted their teeth. Thank you, madam. We'll cripple our own cultivations now. With that, one of them lifted his hand and crippled his cultivation. The others followed suit and crippled their own cultivations. Crippling their cultivation was better than killing themselves. If they could find a way to prolong their lives and their remaining lifespan, perhaps they would not have to die. With this belief in their hearts, they crippled their cultivations. As their cultivations were crippled, the originally old people became even older. They slowly sat down on the ground. They didn't even have the strength to support themselves. They could only lean on the side and gasp for breath. When she saw this, Feng Jiu said, "Go back. In 3 days." "Yes. Thank you, madam." The Chung clan's ancestor replied with a trembling voice. When he got up, he saw the few people who were leaning against the wall, barely breathing. After taking a deep breath, he looked away and called out, "Men, send these elders back to the Chung clan." Clang! Suddenly, the sound of a bowl falling to the ground was heard from the kitchen. Chapter 50. Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows when she saw me, heading to the kitchen. She glanced at the Chung family members, then at the Chung family's ancestor, the elders whose cultivations were crippled, and the guards. She asked, "Where's the head of the Chung family?" The Chung family's ancestor was startled. Only then did he remember that Chung Wanshan was nowhere to be seen. He thought about the commotion in the kitchen, then thought about the missing Chung Wanshan. His face instantly turned pale, and he asked angrily, "Where's Chung Wanshan? Where did he go?" Cold sweat seeped out his back, and his heart sank. "Please don't let it be what I'm thinking. Madam, little Seven is missing." The bowl in the kitchen fell to the floor. "I picked up some food for her when I came out just now. The kitchen window was open, so she must have been kidnapped through the window." "Me," said with a face full of self-blame. It was all her fault for not looking after her properly and leaving her alone in the kitchen. Hao and Mu Chen looked at each other and went to stand beside their mother without saying anything. Feng Jiu took a sip of tea, then stood up and said, "Then let's go to the Chung family to take a look. If there's no accident, she should be there." She paused, and her clear eyes turned to look at the pale Chung family's ancestor. Her lips curled into a cold smile. "Don't you think so?" The Chung family's ancestor fell to his knees. "Madam, please investigate. We didn't know. I'll go back now. If Chung Wanshan really did it, I will kill him with my own hands." "I don't think you have the guts," Feng Jiu said indifferently, then glanced at him and said, "Aren't you going to lead the way?" Now that her 3 children were here, she didn't have to worry about them anymore. She believed that even if they met with danger, they would have a way to save themselves. Yes. The Chung ancestor hurriedly stood up and brought her back to the Chung residence. At this moment, he hated Chung Wanshan to the core. If it was really Chung Wanshan who did it, then it could be said that their efforts were wasted. Right now, they could only hope that he did not hurt the little girl. Otherwise, their Chung family would be buried with her. The Chung family's patriarch personally brought her to the Chung family with me, Hao and Mu Chen following behind. However, when the Chung family's patriarch hurriedly arrived at the Chung family's main gate, he heard a shrill scream coming from inside. A roar! After the blood-curdling screams were heard, the roar of a beast was heard. The roar carried the pressure of a divine beast, which shocked everyone in the Chung family, especially the guards in the front yard. They all widened their eyes and stared in shock at the seemingly innocent and harmless little girl. Who would have thought that she would be able to summon a divine beast with a smile on her face? Furthermore, she took advantage of their master's unguarded state and bit off one of his legs. Looking at the bloody leg that was thrown to the side, and then looking at the innocent little girl standing at the side, everyone felt their hair stand on end, and their hair stood on end. Before they arrived, they heard the noise inside. Feng Jiu was not surprised and raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. She was Feng Jiu's daughter. Was she a soft persimmon that anyone could pinch? Hao and Mu Chen, who were behind him, also looked calm and indifferent. Obviously, they had already expected this to happen. Only me was stunned for a moment before she heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 50-51. Cheng Wanshan, who was missing a leg, was paralyzed on the ground. His complexion was deathly pale as he screamed in horror. He tried to struggle to escape, but a majestic god-beast lion was lying on his body. It stretched out its tongue and licked the blood from the corner of its mouth. More than half of its weight was pressing down on his body, making him unable to struggle free. And not far away, a leg which was bitten off was thrown to one side. All the people in the surroundings were looking at this scene in horror, but no one dared to go forward. At one side, that little girl was looking at this scene. Her little face had a smile on it. There wasn't the slightest bit of fear on her face. Instead, there was excitement and expectation. He didn't expect that after hastily rushing back, he would see this kind of scene. Even the old ancestor of Cheng clan, who had seen many things, couldn't help but be dumbfounded at this moment. This, in the end, what is going on? Aunt, seeing her mother had come, Yu-Er's face blossomed with a happy smile. She softly called and trotted over to her mother. Outside, they couldn't call her mother, and could only call her aunt. Seeing this little girl running over, Fengjiu smiled. Then hugging her, he asked, "How did you come here?" Yu-Er hugged his neck and said, "That bad person climbed the window and kidnapped me. After he caught me here, he wanted to tie me up. So I called out my contract beast to bite him. Old ancestor save me." At this moment, one of Cheng Wanshan's arm was also bitten off. This kind of scene of being bitten off was bloody and cruel. Seeing this, everyone of Cheng clan felt their scalp tingling. Cheng clan's old ancestor didn't understand why Cheng Wanshan, who possessed good strength, was unable to resist this god-beast. At this time, after Fengjiu shot a glance at Cheng Wanshan, he raised his eyebrows and asked the little girl in his bosom, "Did you use medicine on him?" I just used a little." She stretched out her little finger and gestured. Who would have thought that he had bad intentions to catch her? Since he wanted to catch her, then she would follow along to play. In any case, her mother was preparing to deal with the people of Cheng clan. Even if she let the lion bite him to death, her mother shouldn't blame her. Kacha! With a cracking sound, another miserable shriek rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that the lion had bitten off Cheng Wanshan's neck. However, the moment Cheng Wanshan let out a scream, his entire spirit quickly fled. The body on the ground instantly became a corpse. After a flash of light quickly escaped from the corpse, it almost didn't think before rushing in the direction of Hao-Er and Mu-Chun. He thought that if his soul escaped, as long as he found a physical body, he could still live. If this physical body was one of the two boys, even this woman would not dare to do anything to him. Unexpectedly, he had overestimated his own speed. "You're courting death." Fengjiu's voice was indifferent and carried a trace of cold, killing intent. Almost at the same time as her voice sounded, a ball of flame emerged from her hand and engulfed the spirit with a whoosh. Hiss! No, I don't want to die. No. Ancestor, save me. Chapter 50-52. When the Cheng clan's ancestor saw this, his eyes narrowed. His lips trembled slightly, but he was unable to say a single word. He had only heard of the Empress Phoenix Master's power, but now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he knew that even a powerful cultivator like him couldn't help but tremble at this scene. Fengjiu retracted his hand and glanced coldly at the corpses on the ground. Then he looked at the Cheng ancestor and said, "Since we're all here, we'll stay here. Yes, I'll bring you to the courtyard to rest." The Cheng ancestor quickly regained his senses and said. He didn't dare to say anything else and quickly brought them to the backyard. Fengjiu and the rest, who were originally going to stay at the inn, ended up staying at the Cheng residence. This made the Cheng family members very nervous and cautious, afraid that they would do something wrong and anger her. The only thing that made the Cheng ancestor feel fortunate was that other than the few supreme martial artists of the Cheng family and him, the rest of the people in the residence weren't implicated. This was also a source of hope for the Cheng family. At least, the Cheng family wasn't full of weaklings. In 3 days, the Cheng ancestor handed over all the property and resources in the residence to Fengjiu. Of course, perhaps some disciple or someone secretly kept some, but no one knew. Outsiders wanted to find out who the green-robed lady was. What did the Chung family do? But no one knew. 3 days later, in front of Feng Jiao and the other managers of the Chung clan, the old ancestor of the Chung clan personally crippled his cultivation. Then, he was carried away by the Chung clan members. They hurriedly left the Chung clan and Longnan. Feng Jiao and the others stayed in the Chung residence for one more day. After they sold the Chung residence, they left as well. Those who were curious about her identity watched them leave, but they didn't dare to secretly follow them or inquire about their whereabouts. They could only watch as they left the city and disappeared to an unknown location. Half a month later, at the Immortal Island, Mu Chun, and Hao were playing on the Rainbow Bridge. Their bell-like laughter could be heard from time to time. Air's laughter spread with the wind. Big brother, come and chase me. Come and chase me. She ran with a smile on her face, her feet moving like the wind. She turned around and shouted to her 2 brothers behind her. Hao and Mu Chun looked at each other with doting smiles on their faces. Then you have to be careful, lest we catch up to you and make you cry. As soon as they finished speaking, the 2 of them dashed out like the wind and chased after the little girl in the little dress. Hee, you guys can't catch up with me, Sun said with a smile. Seeing that they were chasing after him, he immediately sped up to let them catch up. Her skills might not be as good as theirs, but in terms of escaping speed, the 2 of them might not be able to catch up with her. The 3 children were playing on the island, while the contracted beasts were wandering around the island, especially the newly arrived ones. The divine beast lion was filled with surprise and curiosity towards this place. However, when it saw that there were ancient divine beasts and sacred beasts everywhere on this island, it clamped its tail and obediently squatted at the side, not daring to appear in front of those ancient divine beasts and sacred beasts. Chapter 5053. There weren't many people on the island. There were only some cranes or flower fairies transformed into maids. She was the only one in the main hall. It was very quiet and no one disturbed her. Only the sound of her flipping through the book could be heard. At the same time, outside the island, a young guard and an old man were escorting a man in white. The 3 of them were standing at the entrance of the island. Because of the barrier, they couldn't touch or get close. They just stopped in front. "Young master, we are here." As the old man spoke, he looked at the island covered by clouds. There was a hint of excitement in his voice. The man in white, Yuan Jing, looked forward with a pair of soulless eyes. Even though he knew it was the island of the Empress Phoenix Master, because he couldn't see, he was relatively calm. "I'm Yuan Jing. I'm here to greet the Phoenix Master." His voice was filled with spirit force and pressure. It penetrated the clouds and the barrier and entered the Immortal Island. The red-crowned crane flying in the sky above the island circled around the entrance and looked around. Hearing the words, it soon flapped its wings and flew towards the main hall. When it arrived at the main hall, there was a flash of light and shadow. The red-crowned crane turned into a beautiful fairy and gently landed in front of the main hall. She walked forward and reported softly, "Master, a guest has come to visit. He said his name is Yuan Jing. Do you want to see him?" Hearing the voice from outside the hall, Feng Jiao's hand that was flipping through the book paused. He said, "Let them in." "Yes." The fairy answered softly and turned to fly to greet the guest. Yuan Jing and the other 2 followed the fairy inside. Since they couldn't see, they didn't know what kind of fairyland it would be after entering the fairy island. However, he clearly felt that the breathing of the 2 people beside him had changed a little. "Uncle Yuan, is the scenery here very beautiful?" Yuan Jing asked with a hint of a smile in his gentle voice. "Beautiful? It's more than beautiful. It's simply a paradise." The old man couldn't hide his excitement. However, he lowered his voice and didn't dare to speak too loudly. Thinking that his young master couldn't see, he said, "Young master, when your eyes are healed in the future, you will be able to see this fairy-like place." Hearing this, Yuan Jing smiled but didn't say anything. It was only when they arrived before the palace hall that the female immortal went in to report. Then, she led them into the palace hall before withdrawing. Yuan Jing greets Phoenix Master. Yuan Jing bowed to the front. Greetings, Phoenix Master. The old man and the guard bowed respectfully and knelt down to pay their respects. Feng Jiu closed the book in his hand, looked at the three people in the hall, and said, "Sit." "Thank you, Phoenix Master." Yuan Jing thanked him and was led to sit down by the old man. The old man and the guard stood behind him, not daring to look at him. They just stood there quietly with half-closed eyes. "You found the red-eyed spiritual monster's fisheye so quickly?" Feng Jiu asked, his gaze falling on Yuan Jing. It had to be said that there was no lack of handsome men and beautiful women in the immortal world. "Yes, as soon as I got the scarlet-eyed spiritual monster's fisheye, I brought it over." As he spoke, he took out a box from his sleeve and handed it to the old man beside him. After the old man received it, he lowered his head and respectfully presented it with both hands. "Phoenix Master, please take a look." Chapter 5054. After taking a look, she closed the box and said, "Not bad. These are indeed the eyes of an adult red-eyed monster, and they've been preserved very well." She took the box and looked at Yuan Jing, saying, "Since you're Mo Chen's friend, and he's the one who asked, I can naturally cure your eyes." "Thank you, Phoenix Master." Yuan Jing stood up and bowed with his hands folded in front of him. "I need to use this fish eye to refine the spiritual liquid. You can stay here for the time being. However, the two people beside you have to leave first." Feng Jiu looked at the old man's guards. Because the three children were still here, there were too many people, so she naturally wouldn't let them stay. As for Yuan Jing, she had confirmed with Mo Chen that he was indeed his friend. Moreover, he had praised Yuan Jing a lot. Since that was the case, she would naturally treat him more leniently. Hearing this, Yuan Jing was startled. After a pause, he said to the two people beside him, "Uncle Yuan, you can go back first. But, young master, you can't see. If we're not by your side, it will be very inconvenient." The old man said worriedly, "It's okay. I can do it myself." He smiled and said gently. Seeing this, the old man and the guards responded. They went up and bowed to the Phoenix Master, who was sitting at the head of the table. "Phoenix Master, our young master will have to trouble you." "Okay," Feng Jiu responded. She called the fairy servant and had her take them away. After they left, she looked at Yuan Jing, who was sitting there, and slowly walked down, saying, "There's a fairy servant here for you to order. If you need anything, just tell the fairy servant to do it for you." "Okay," Yuan Jing responded. After thinking for a while, he couldn't help but ask, "Is there anyone else here? Will it be inappropriate for Yuan Jing to be here?" After all, he was a man. In such a large place, if she stayed with him, it would damage her reputation. Hearing this, Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows. She looked him up and down and smiled. "Inappropriate? You're thinking too much." As soon as he finished speaking, he called over the immortal servant and had her take him away. After he left, she walked to the door of the hall and released her divine sense. She knew that the three children were chasing each other on the Rainbow Bridge. Seeing this, she gathered her chi and flew towards them. "Mother." Seeing her, Yu immediately rushed toward her. Throwing herself into her bosom, Yu giggled. "Mother, mother, big brother and them are unable to catch me." "Mother." Soon after, Hao and Mu Chen also arrived in front of their mother. Both of their foreheads were dripping with sweat. After chasing Yu for a long time, they were still unable to catch up with her. This really made them surprised. "Sister, how are you so fast?" Mu Chen could not help but ask. He, of course. "Master taught me. He said that my skills are not as good as the two of you, but I can win in terms of speed, so I practiced hard," she said proudly, her face full of joy and happiness. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled and said, "It seems that making you worship Qing Di as your master is indeed the right choice." "Mother, I heard people say that our master is very powerful. In the end, is our master powerful? Or is father and mother powerful?" Yu raised her head from her bosom and asked curiously while blinking her beautiful big eyes. Chapter 5055. Hearing this, Yu couldn't help but stare blankly and somewhat anxiously said, "Mother, mother, you and father shouldn't fight with master. Master is very good to us. Don't bully him." Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle. Lightly pinching her little nose, he smiled and said, "You still know how to protect your master? Don't you want to know who is more powerful between father and mother?" Yura thought for a bit, then rolled her eyes and said, "Father and mother are the most powerful. Master is behind father and mother, but he is also very powerful. It's good that you know how to protect your master. This way your master won't dote on you for nothing." Fengjiu chuckled and tapped her nose. She said to the three of them, "A man named Yuan Jing has come to the island. He is here to treat his eyes. Mother is going to help him refine the medicine. You can play by yourselves these days. But don't forget to cultivate, especially you." She looked at her daughter in her arms and said, "The God-striking whip that your master gave you is an incredible treasure. Take it and practice your whip skills well." Don't worry, Mother. You will practice the whip well." She quickly nodded and said, "Mother, don't worry. We will look after little sister and not let her play." Hao also said, "Mother, I will also work hard to cultivate." Muchen also said, "Good, you are all very obedient. You are all my babies." She smiled and hugged the three of them in her arms, kissing them one by one. Seeing their happy and shy appearance, she couldn't help but smile. "Okay, Mother will leave first. If you want to eat anything, go find me and let her make it for you. But remember, you can't sneak out of the island," she instructed. "Okay." The three of them responded and watched her leave, then went to the training field. For Yuan Jing, this was a strange place. He couldn't see and didn't even know where to go out of the courtyard. Therefore, after the fairy servant brought him to the guest courtyard, he didn't take a step out of the courtyard for the whole day. Since he couldn't see, even if he went out, he wouldn't be able to see even the most beautiful fairyland. Who knows, he might even cause trouble for the Phoenix Master. Since that was the case, why not stay in this courtyard? Until evening. "It's here? Me." Poked her head out and looked at the courtyard. Seeing that the sky was gradually darkening, there was no light or fire in the courtyard. It was pitch black, and the man called Yuan Jing was sitting in the courtyard. "Who is it?" Hearing the voice, Yuan Jing was slightly surprised and looked in the direction of the voice. Although he couldn't see anything, at least his face was facing towards the voice. "Oh, it's me, Song Mia." Mia walked in with a tray of food. "Why didn't you light the lamps?" She said As she spoke, she put the dinners. "I teet, but thank you, teet. Teet. Chapter 5056. On the Immortal Island, there were many treasures like luminous pearls that illuminated the island. But even if they were not used, they would cover their light with cloth. Entering the room, Mir opened the lamp that covered the luminous pearls. In an instant, the light illuminated the entire room. Walking out of the room, Mir smiled and said, "Young Master Yuan, if you need anything, just tell the immortal maidservants. Otherwise, you can ask them to find me. I am usually in the kitchen. If you want to walk around, you can ask the immortal maidservants to show you the way." Saying this, she came to the table. Looking at him who could not see, she asked, "Is it okay for you to eat by yourself? Do you need me to ask the immortal maidservants to help you?" "I could do it myself," Yuan Jing said gently. "Okay, I will leave first. The immortal maidservants will come in to clean up later." Saying this, turned and left. After she left, Yuan Jing ate by himself. He ate slowly and did not eat much. After asking the immortal maidservants to put away the food, he went back to his room to rest. In the next 2 days, although he could walk around the Immortal Island, he could not see, so he did not go out. He just stayed in the courtyard and meditated. 2 days later, Fengjiu came to the courtyard where Yuan Jing lived. When she saw the courtyard, she saw him sitting in the courtyard. Although Yuan Jing couldn't hear it, his hearing was very good. He tilted his head slightly and heard the light footsteps coming. He stood up and saluted in the direction of the footsteps. "Phoenix Master." Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "I have made the red-eyed monster's fish eye into a liquid medicine. I brought it for you to try." Saying this, she walked to his room and said, "Come in." Yuan Jing paused for a moment and followed her in. When he came to the room, he was called to lie on the bed. Looking at Yuan Jing, who was lying on the bed with his hands nervously grabbing the sheets under him, Fengjiu chuckled and said, Relax. I will not do anything to you. Yuan Jing smiled and gradually relaxed. He felt that she was checking his eyes and feeling his pulse. After a while, his eyes were slightly opened by her fingers and a cool liquid dripped into his eyes. He only felt a slight stinging pain in his eyes. Then, the pain was diluted by the coolness of the liquid and gradually became very comfortable. How do you feel? Fengjiu asked. At first, it was a little stinging, then it became cool. Now, my eyes have a very comfortable feeling, Yuan Jing said honestly. Yes, blink your eyes slightly. Try to let the medicinal liquid seep into your eyes. As Fengjiu spoke, he dripped 2 drops of liquid medicine into his other eye. At the same time, the green lotus qi in his palm began to circulate. Specks of green light, accompanied by pure spiritual energy, fell into his eye. It's a warm feeling now. It's a little itchy, Yuan Jing continued. He felt a strange sensation coming from his eyes. Fengjiu did not speak, but quietly urged the green lotus qi to cooperate with the medicinal liquid to treat him. After about half an hour, she withdrew her palm. However, Yuan Jing had fallen asleep, and his breathing had become slow and calm. Glancing at the sleeping person, Feng Nine raised her eyebrows, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she stood up and walked out. With the spiritual liquid, spiritual energy, and green lotus qi, it was no wonder that he fell asleep so comfortably. Chapter 50-57. Oh, the 3 of them went to the forest, saying that they were going to gain experience. However, Huafeng and Tun Yun followed them. Mi-Er placed the pastries on the small table beside her and asked, Is Mistress looking for them? Do you want me to call them back? Since they went to the forest, let them wander around there. Fengjiu said as she picked up a pastry and ate it. She asked, Mi-Er, has your strength improved recently? It has improved a little, and I feel that my fighting strength has increased a lot. Mi-Er said with a smile. She continued, I even asked Uncle Tai to refine another set of knives for me, but I think it will take a long time to refine them. Fengjiu replied. She took a sip of tea and said, Keep an eye on Yuan Jing in the guest courtyard. If anything is missing, get it for him. Okay, I know. In the next few days, Fengjiu treated Yuan Jing's eyes almost every day and then asked him how he felt during the treatment and if there were any changes in his eyes. On this day, when Fengjiu used the green lotus energy to treat Yuan Jing's eyes again, she continued to ask, How do you feel today? My eyes are hot, as if there's a ball of hot air pressing down on them. It is a little itchy, but it doesn't hurt anymore, Yuan Jing said. Hearing this, Fengjiu retracted her hand and looked at him lying on the bed. She said, Get up, come outside and take a look. Hearing this, Yuan Jing was startled, but he did as she said without hesitation. He followed her to the courtyard, and when he heard the footsteps in front of him stop, he also stopped. Open your eyes and take a look. Tell me, what can you see? Fengjiu said slowly. Yuan Jing was stunned, and his eyelashes fluttered lightly. During this period of treatment, he had been told not to open his eyes. That was to say, from the day the treatment began, he, who could walk with his eyes open even if he couldn't see, had always kept his eyes closed. Now that he heard her ask him to open his eyes, he couldn't react for a moment. Open your eyes and see if it's still pitch black. Fengjiu saw that he didn't move and continued. Only then did Yuan Jing slowly open his eyes. His eyes were filled with nervousness, caution, and uneasiness. When he opened his eyes, he still couldn't see the scenery in front of him, but he could vaguely see a blurry white light. His heart skipped a beat, and his entire body began to tremble slightly. I think I saw a shadow. Hearing the nervous and trembling voice, Fengjiu reached out and waved her hand in front of him. What about now? What did you see? I don't know what it is, but it seems like something is waving in front of me, and when it waved, it blocked out half of the light. As he spoke, his voice paused, and he could not hide his excitement as he asked, Phoenix Master, are my eyes almost healed? Fengjiu retracted her hand. She said, It was my hand that was waving, but it's a good thing that you can see the light. As she spoke, she placed the medicinal liquid in his hand and said, Since you can see the light, you can drip the medicinal liquid on your own. Change it to once a day in the morning, noon, and night. After you drip the medicinal liquid, cover your eyes with a piece of cloth. I will come back 3 days later to check again." "Okay, thank you, Phoenix Master," he replied and thanked her, unable to hide the joy and excitement in his heart. Chapter 5058. Another half a month had passed. On this day, Yuan Jing, who had applied the medicine to his eyes, only felt a cooling sensation in his eyes. There was no longer any itchiness, dryness, or stinging pain. He walked in a room and walked out of the door. When he arrived at the courtyard, he slowly and carefully opened his eyes. The blurry scenery in front of him gradually became clear. The world that had always been pitch black was now filled with a myriad of colors. His heart was trembling. He looked forward and saw the greenery in the courtyard. He saw the small red flowers in the corner of the wall. He saw the verdant trees in the courtyard. The greenery was so beautiful. He even saw the leaves swaying when the wind blew. Occasionally, a few leaves would fly down with the wind, fluttering and landing in the courtyard. I see it," he muttered. His voice was choked with emotion. His eyes involuntarily turned red, and a trace of moisture gathered in his eyes. "Is this the color of the world?" he said in a daze as he walked forward with large strides. He walked out of the courtyard step by step and saw the even more beautiful scenery outside. The blue sky, the white clouds, the colorful flowers, the green trees, and the yellow of the withered leaves, the rainbow in the distance. The clouds in the sky, besides the white clouds, could also be a beautiful red. "The color of the world is so beautiful," he muttered softly. It was as if he was lamenting, admiring, and amazed. He was like a newborn baby, filled with curiosity and joy towards everything. In the sky, there were beautiful red-crowned cranes flying. There were birds chirping on the branches of the trees. In the pond, lotus flowers were blooming. The lotus leaves were floating on the water's surface, and the fish were swimming in the water. All of this was so beautiful that one could not bear to look away. In the distance, a red figure slowly walked over. Her red dress was very dazzling, allowing him to see her figure from afar. As she gradually came closer, that beautiful face that could topple cities also gradually entered his eyes. He thought that all the beauty in the world could not describe the beauty on her body. Even if he had never seen her before, at this moment, the moment he saw her, he knew that she was the Empress Phoenix Master. She was also the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, the Phoenix Master who had cured his eyes these days. He withdrew his gaze and did not dare to look at her again. He was afraid that he would blaspheme such a noble person. "Greetings, Phoenix Master." When she came closer, Yuan Jing bowed his head and bowed to her with hands folded. "Can you see?" Fengjiu's eyes fell on him. As he raised his head, his eyes fell on Yuan Jing's eyes. "Yes, I opened my eyes today. I can see," he answered. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. "Since you can see it, you can go back." Hearing this, Yuan Jing paused and asked, "How can I repay you, Phoenix Master?" She cured his eyes, but never mentioned anything about payment. How could he repay her? Fengjiu chuckled. "You don't have to repay me. After all, I don't lack anything. If you really want to thank someone, thank him, Chun. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have cured you." Chapter 5059. Yuan Jing didn't even have time to speak before he felt a powerful aura wrap around him and lift him up. In a flash, he was out of the enchantment of the immortal island. His body was no longer wrapped in that power, and he fell down. Immediately, he quickly condensed his spirit power and stabilized his body. He stood in the air and looked at the celestial island. He respectfully and solemnly bowed. "Phoenix Master's great kindness. I, Yuan Jing, will never forget it. If you need my help in the future, please let me know." After bowing, he took a deep look at the immortal island before turning around and leaving. On the immortal island, Fengjiu smiled at Yuan Jing's words and didn't take it to heart. Instead, she sent a message to Mo Chun, telling him that Yuan Jing's eyes had been cured and he had left. Then, she went back to her place. During this time, she found a way to go to the lower realm. That was to cultivate the power of the soul. When the time came, she could tear a hole in the void and return to the lower realm. Because of the isolation of the void enchantment, she couldn't know what happened in the lower realm and how Moze was doing. Therefore, after settling down in the upper realm, she wanted to go back and see if Moze was about to wake up. As for the remaining great emperors, they were hiding like turtles. It would be difficult to find them in a short time. Therefore, she wanted to take advantage of this time to see how Moze was doing. After all, it had been so long. Perhaps he had condensed his immortal body. If he needed her help again, she would give him a push so that he could wake up sooner and ascend to the immortal realm. At that time, the two of them would join forces. Even if the three great emperors recovered from their injuries and joined forces, they would be no match for them. As for the three children, they had gone to the beast forest on the immortal island to cultivate. With the fire phoenix following them, she didn't have to worry about them. Therefore, after she returned to her residence, she gave some instructions and entered the space to immerse herself in cultivation. A month later, the Qing emperor, who had been away for some time, came to Fengjiu's fairy island. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the place filled with clouds. He raised his hand and stretched it forward. A powerful aura visible to the naked eye appeared. Then, a boundary appeared. Emperor Qing's eyes flashed slightly. After seeing the scene in front of him, he retracted his hand. His low voice carried the aura of spiritual force as it penetrated the boundary and headed for the enchanted island. Fengjiu. At this time, Fengjiu was still cultivating his spiritual strength in the space. How could he hear him calling out at this time? However, heard the voice and flew over on her sword in surprise. She asked, "Who is it? Who dares to call my master by his name?" When she arrived at the entrance of the immortal island and saw the person outside the barrier, frowned. She instinctively felt that this was a dangerous person. Could it be that master's enemy had come knocking on his door? Er's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively took a step back. Her battle prowess was enough to deal with the average person, but against such a dangerous person, it was not enough. "I am the Qing Emperor." The Qing Emperor glanced indifferently at the clouds. With his powerful divine sense, he could tell that there was someone there even though the clouds were blocking his senses. "Qing Emperor?" Was stunned. She exclaimed, "Qing Emperor? Wait a moment, I will call someone to confirm." With that, quickly left on her sword. Chapter 50-60. Outside the enchantment barrier, Emperor Qing's face darkened when he heard the conversation. He stood there with his hands behind his back and waited. How and Mu Chun slept a little later today, but they had already washed up. They were preparing to practice a set of boxing gloves and then walk around. The two of them were preparing to practice in the yard when they saw rushing in. You two are awake? That's great, come with me." Hurriedly said. The two looked at each other and asked, "What's wrong?" "There's a man outside who says he's Emperor Qing. Master is now in seclusion, and I haven't seen Emperor Qing. So I came to ask you to see if that person is Emperor Qing, lest Master's enemy gets in." "How?" And Mu Chun were shocked when they heard this. They said in unison, "You left our master outside the enchantment island?" "I just asked him to wait for a while." Saw the stunned look on their faces and said, "Let's go quickly. Let's see if it's your master." "How?" Put away his shocked expression, and a smile appeared on his face. "I don't need to see. I know it's our master." With that, he took the lead and walked out. Their master was Emperor Qing. Many people wanted to cozy up to him, but they couldn't. Only dared to leave him outside the enchantment island. Mu Chun saw that his brother had left first and said to me, I also think it's our master. With our master's reputation, no one would dare to impersonate him." With that, he also quickly walked out. Hearing this, was stunned. She hurriedly called inside, "What? Your master is here. Get up quickly." With that, she quickly followed the two outside. In a daze, heard something about her master and immediately jumped out of bed. Outside, when and Mu Chun arrived at the enchantment barrier of the enchantment island, they saw the familiar figure outside and quickly called out, "Master." When who had hurried over, heard the two's words, she hurriedly used her token to open the barrier. She then awkwardly bowed towards Emperor Qing. Song greets Emperor Qing. Emperor Qing, please come in, please. The Qing Emperor glanced at her, then looked at the two people beside her and asked, Where's Cloud 7? Master, she just woke up and is still in the courtyard. Our replied. Qing Emperor, please come to the palace and drink some tea. Mir gestured for him to enter. The Qing Emperor walked forward with Hao and Mu Chun by his side. When they reached the main hall, Mir quickly served him tea and pastries. Seeing that Hao and Mu Chun were both present, she did not stay any longer and left. Master, have you finished your business? Are you going to bring us back to Cloud Sky Mountain? Hao asked. When they saw him, their first thought was that their master had finished his business and was going to take them back. After they went back, they probably wouldn't be able to see their mother for a short period of time. After taking a sip of tea, Emperor Qing glanced at them and asked, Don't you want to go back? No, no, the two of them said in unison. Seeing this, Emperor Qing did not say anything. Instead, he said, Master left this time to handle some personal matters. At the same time, I also found weapons for all of you. This time, I come to bring all of you over and personally retrieve them. Chapter 5061. Hao and Mu Chun looked at each other and said, Master, our mother is in seclusion. Seclusion? Emperor Qing paused and said, With her current strength, who does she need to go into seclusion to deal with? Or is she going to do something earth-shattering again? Mu Chun looked at him with the expression of a little adult. Master, you should know that our father is still in the lower immortal realm. And it's not just our father, but many of our relatives are in the lower immortal realm. I heard from Mother that she wants to break the void boundary of the upper immortal realm so that the two realms can be connected. Emperor Qing couldn't help but chuckle and said, This seems like something your mother would do. However, this matter is not so simple. He put down the teacup in his hand and said, The upper immortal world is different from the other places in the lower immortal world. Not only is there a difference in space, but there are also the 9 levels of the heavenly Tao. It is not so easy for her to connect the two worlds. Master, a delicate and soft voice sounded at this time. Emperor Qing's eyes were gentle when he heard this voice. He looked at the entrance of the hall and saw the little girl running in like the wind and falling into his arms. Master, Yunqi missed you. You knew that she had run away secretly. Now that her master had come to find her, the first thing she did was to please him. She immediately jumped into his arms and didn't forget to rub her little head against his chest. Then she raised her head and showed a sweet smile. Emperor Qing's face was calm and no expression could be seen on his face. His deep and calm eyes were fixed on the little girl who was smiling sweetly. Hearing her words, he asked in a deep voice, Did you miss your master? Yes. You quickly nodded. But why do I remember that you didn't listen to me and sneaked out of Cloud Sky Mountain? His cold voice was deep, and she couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. Even his face didn't have any expression or gentleness. Seeing this, Yu's heart skipped a beat. She lowered her head guiltily and uneasily, and her little hand grabbed the corner of his clothes, not knowing what to say. Looking at her uneasy expression, Emperor Qing sighed his heart and couldn't help but soften his voice. Do you think you still dare to disobey Master? Sneaking out of the mountain? Hearing this, she quickly raised her head and said, I won't dare. Master, I'll definitely listen to Master in the future. If Master doesn't let me leave the mountain, I won't leave. Really, I promise. Remember what you said today. Emperor Qing looked at her and said, Okay. She nodded in response. Seeing his expression soften a little, she smiled and said, Master, why are you here? Didn't you go to do something? Has the matter been settled? Are you going to take us back to the mountain? Master, my mother's place is so beautiful. Master, do you want to stay here for a few days? Sister Er's cooking is so delicious, Master. All right. Emperor Qing interrupted her words and said, Master knows that you too want to stay by your mother's side, but don't forget that you too are still my disciples. Saying this, he said again, You already have God beating whip as your weapon. Yin Shun and Yin Yuan still don't have suitable weapons, so I'm going to take them to find a suitable sword. Then do I also have to go? Yu blinked her eyes and asked. Chapter 5062. Emperor Qing, Are you going to take them away? Fengjiu's voice was heard. Mother, how and the other two called out. They stood up and looked at her. Muchen asked, Mother, aren't you in seclusion? As he spoke, he saw me whispering to him from the side of the main hall. She was the one who went to invite her over. Fengjiu smiled and walked forward. I told me to call me if there's anything. Since your master is here, even if I'm in seclusion, I have to come out and entertain him. She walked forward and sat down. Looking at Emperor Qing, she said, Since you're here, why don't you stay for a few days? Emperor Qing looked at her and said, I'm going to take them to find a suitable weapon. We'll return to Cloud Sky Mountain directly, so I'll take Cloud 7 with me. He paused and said, There's no need to stay for a while. We'll rest today and set off tomorrow. This was for Fengjiu and the three children. Fengjiu was startled by his words. He looked at him, then at Hao and Muchen. In fact, they also had weapons. Not only did the two of them have daggers, but they also had long swords that could cut through iron like mud. It was precisely because the swords they were using now were excellent that she didn't think of changing their swords. Thus, when she heard Emperor Qing's words, she was slightly surprised. Since Emperor Qing said that he was going to take them to find weapons, the weapons they would naturally obtain would be something that their current weapons could not compare to. She did not ask what kind of weapons he was going to find for them. Instead, she said, In that case, I'll have to trouble you, Emperor Qing. They chatted for a while in the hall. Then, Fengjiu personally took Emperor Qing to the guest house to rest. He instructed the three children to accompany him and instructed me to prepare dishes to entertain the guests the next morning in front of the boundary at the entrance of the Immortal Island. The three children, who had packed up, followed Emperor Qing and looked at their mother reluctantly. Listen to your master and cultivate diligently. Mother will visit you in the future if there's a chance, Fengjiu said to them. And mother, don't worry. We will listen to master's words. As the three of them spoke, they stood beside their master and did not move. They did not dare to throw themselves into their mother's arms, for fear that they would hug her tightly and not want to leave. Emperor Qing, I'll leave the three of them to you. Fengjiu cupped his hands and bowed. Yes, Emperor Qing replied. He glanced at the three children and said, They are the most unstable at this age. If it is not necessary, it is better to avoid them. Fengjiu knew what he meant. She looked at the three children, nodded, and gave them a gentle smile. Mother, we will train hard and work hard to become stronger. Muchen said with a serious face, his voice solemn, as if he was making a promise. And mother knows, you are all good children. She was also reluctant to part with them, but she also knew that it was best for them to follow Emperor Qing. Mother, Yor will miss you. But in the future, Yor will not be able to sneak out to look for you. Mother, don't worry. You will be very obedient in the future. I won't let master and mother worry. The little girl also spoke. Fengjiu nodded. She was very pleased. Fengjiu,